What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. Naruto gets Ino pregnant. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Life was normal for little Sakura Haruno. She played quietly in her room while her mom was out getting groceries. All she ever knew about life and family was her and her mom. Her mother would work 2 jobs in order to help make ends meet. While her mom was at work, Yuhi Kurenai would watch over the little 4-year-old. Her dad had been killed when her mother was still pregnant with her. He had been one of the hundreds of shinobi killed during the Kyuubi attack. That didn't bother her though. Pretty much she was just as happy as every other 4-year-old in Konoha. Except for one. Sakura sweetie, come down here, I want to show you something. Sakura jumped to her feet and ran towards the front door where her mother's voice just came from. As she rounded the corner, and saw her mother taking off her coat that was damp with rain and hanging it to dry. She leapt into her mother's arms giggling, "Mommy, I missed you." Mrs. Haruno smiled as she hugged her daughter back. "I missed you too, honey." She then sat her little girl on the ground. "Now, I have someone I want you to meet, okay?" Sakura nodded her head. Mrs. Haruno stepped aside to reveal a blonde-haired boy about Sakura's age. The boy quickly realized he was visible and hid back behind Mrs. Haruno once again. She smiled and held out her hand behind her. "Come on, little one. You're safe here." A small hand took hers as she guided him out from behind her. Sakura now got a good look at the child and was sad. The hair that was blonde in spots was drenched and flattened with a mixture of blood and rain. His face has several bruises and one of his eyes was swollen shut. His shirt was almost completely ripped off. His gaze was on the ground, not looking up. He stiffened when he felt 2 arms wrap around him in a hug. Sakura let him go and smiled. "What's your name?" The boy kept his eyes on the ground. "Uzumaki Naruto." Sakura giggled, "That's a funny name." Naruto sniffled, "Sorry." Sakura suddenly engulfed him in a hug. "Let's be best friends, okay?" Naruto stiffened as he was unsure what to do. He slowly hugged her back. Okay." Mrs. Haruno smiled at the two. She was glad that Naruto seemed to not be completely terrified of Sakura like he was of her when she first tried to help him. Flashback. Mrs. Haruno slowly walked down the street from her second job. Another long day. It was much easier before the attack. Her attention was regained though when she heard some commotion in an alley she just passed. He looked and saw a pair of genins kicking something on the ground. "That will show you to run from us. I don't even know why the third has let you live this long. Yeah, we should do everyone a favor and take you out right now." Mrs. Haruno walked forward and caught a glimpse of a small child laying cuddled on the ground trying to protect his head from the attack of the shinobi. She felt her blood boil. "Hey, you stop that. Shinobi are supposed to protect the villagers, not attack them." The genin spun around. "Shut up lady, you don't know anything." Mrs. Haruno stepped forward past the genins and got a look at the child. The child looked up slightly trying to figure out what happened to the unrelenting attack. It was then that Mrs. Haruno saw the unmistakable whisker marks on his face. She gasped as she took a few steps back holding her chest. "It's you." One of the genins smirked. "See? It's the little demon boy." Mrs. Haruno kept her eyes on Naruto. "My husband died in that battle. How can I protect this child?" She reached down to touch his cheek but Naruto quickly moved away, cowering in the corner of the alley. She stepped forward again and touched his cheek. Naruto originally tried to move away again but began to whimper like an injured animal when he realized he was trapped. "Please." Mrs. Haruno looked down at the source of the small whisper of a voice. Naruto looked up at her with begging eyes. "Please lady. Don't hurt me." One of the genins snapped. "Shut up you little curse." Mrs. Haruno looked down at the child as flashes of her own daughter crossed her mind. She stood up, picking up the boy and holding him tight as tears fell down her cheeks. "It's okay now. I won't let them hurt you. What makes you think you can stop us? We'll kill you too, you sympathizer." Both genins. Mrs. Haruno shielded the child with her body and prepared for the attack but it never came. There was the sound of rustling. She looked up to see both genins on the ground and saw a shinobi with a mask over his face standing there. "You two are dishonorable to the shinobi. I will report you both at once." Mrs. Haruno smiled. "Thank you so much." The shinobi's smile was evident with the closure of his uncovered eye. "It's nothing. I owed that kid's dad so now we're even." He then vanished. End of flashback. Mrs. Haruno smiled as she looked back at her daughter and the little boy. Well, Sakura, why don't you go into my closet and get one of your dad's old shirts, okay? I'm going to get this little one cleaned up. She then reached down, picked up Naruto. Naruto held tightly to Mrs. Haruno as he mumbled against the arm that held him. I'm sorry. Mrs. Haruno chuckled, it's okay. Now let's go get that bath. Naruto gulped at the thought of the bath. Mrs. Haruno smiled as she went to start his bath. -10 minutes later. Mrs. Haruno sighed as she scrubbed the shampoo into Naruto's hair, trying to get out all the dirt and blood. From the look of it, this was not all fresh blood. Where do you live at? Naruto looked down ashamed. Nowhere. You don't have a home? The lady at the place with the other kids said I couldn't come back. She said no one would want to be my mommy and daddy. Mrs. Haruno sneered. I'll have to have a talk with Hokage-sama about this. She picked up a cup and started to rinse Naruto's hair. She decided that he definitely needed a haircut. There was a quiet knock on the bathroom door. Mrs. Haruno looked at the open door to see Sakura standing there hugging one of her dad's old shirts. Mommy, there's some strange people downstairs. Strange people? Sakura nodded. There's these people with masks on their face that make them look like animals, and this old man with a funny hat, and this guy with only one eye. Mrs. Haruno quickly picked up Naruto, drying him off and putting the shirt Sakura was holding on him. She then held out a hand to Naruto. He still seemed hesitant to take it. Sakura ran up to him and took his arm, dragging him with her. You have to see the one-eye man. Mrs. Haruno gasped as she reached the bottom of the stairs. She saw Sakura asking the one-eyed ninja a bunch of questions while the ninja seemed to obviously be struggling not to panic. Sakura would sometimes ask a question and look at Naruto for confirmation, but Naruto remained quiet, staying as close as possible to Sakura. What had surprised Mrs. Haruno the most though was the third was standing in her living room. She quickly bowed. Hokage-sama. What brings you here? Sarutobi smiled and chuckled. No need to bow, young lady. He felt a tug on his coat sleeve. He looked down at Sakura. What's a hotake? Mrs. Haruno moved to stop her daughter, but Sarutobi raised a hand to show it was okay. He picked up Sakura with one arm. I'm not sure what a hotake is. But I'm a Hokage. That means that I treat the entire village as my close family and I protect them. Sakura's eyes skewed as she processed the answer. You're old. The three roads' laughter filled the household. I would guess I am. I'm not as young as I used to be. He then looked down at Naruto. Hello, Naruto. Naruto kept his gaze on the ground. Why aren't you at the orphanage? You've caused quite a bit of trouble today. Naruto's shoulders lowered as if he was being scolded. Sorry. Mrs. Haruno stepped forward. Can I speak with you for a second, Hokage-sama? Sarutobi nodded, putting Sakura back onto the ground. Kakashi, watch the two. He then followed Mrs. Haruno into the kitchen. The teenage shinobi paled. What do I do? Sakura smiled and ran upstairs before coming back with a storybook, holding it up to Kakashi. He looked down at it and saw that it was Cinderella. He sighed. Why me? And so the great Kakashi was forced to sit in a chair in front of the Anbu escorts with two kids in his lap and read a fairy tale. I'll never live this down. Switch. Sarutobi looked at Mrs. Haruno across the table. Thank you for trying to help Naruto. Most people would have just let the genin have their way with him once they realize who the child was. Mrs. Haruno nodded. I know what's inside him, but he's still just a little child. Sarutobi smiled and chuckled. That is good to hear. Especially after your husband was one of those to befall that tragedy. My husband believed the job of a shinobi was to protect those unable to protect themselves. Very wise indeed. What did you wish to speak with me about? Mrs. Haruno sighed. Naruto said the orphanage told him to not come back. Sarutobi sighed as well and rubbed his forehead. I was afraid this would come. I'd have a talk with the head tomorrow and have them take Naruto back in. Until they throw him out again? That place won't accept him as he is. Sarutobi nodded in agreement. What do you want me to do? Mrs. Haruno stood and looked out the door that showed the living room. She motioned for the third to come see. He followed her example and was surprised at what he saw. Sakura and Naruto were sitting in Kakashi's lap as the teen read to them. Sakura would point at random pictures that she liked and show them to Naruto. Naruto held onto Sakura's arm like it was his lifeline. When Sakura noticed this, she escaped his grasp and put her arm around him, pulled him next to her. Sakura then rested her head on his shoulder and Naruto rested his head on her head. Mrs. Haruno stepped back and smiled. They've taken to each other quite well. Sarutobi nodded. I know it may not be easy for me, but I think it would be best for Naruto if he stayed here. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow. You wish to adopt him? Mrs. Haruno nodded. He deserves a family. I'll just have to work a little more. Sarutobi chuckled. Come to my office tomorrow. I'll have the head of the orphanage send me the adoption papers. Mrs. Haruno took a deep breath and walked out the door. Kakashi looked up and acted like his personal savior had arrived. She smiled. I know, kids can be a handful. She then walked over to Naruto and got on her knees to be on his level. Naruto? Do you like it here? Naruto nodded, avoiding her gaze. Would you like to visit here more often? Naruto nodded again, this time allowing his gaze to meet hers. Mrs. Haruno looked at Sakura. What do you think, sweetie? Would it be okay if Naruto came for visits? Sakura enthusiastically nodded. Mrs. Haruno smiled again. Well, since you both like the idea so much, how about you just live here with us, Naruto? Naruto's eyes widened. Like you be my mommy? Mrs. Haruno nodded. Yes, I would like to adopt you if that is okay. Naruto leapt from Kakashi's lap and latched his arms around his new mom with a giant hug. They were soon joined when Sakura did the same thing. Sarutobi smiled at the three and nodded to Kakashi and the Anbo. They all left the family to have their first night as a family. Naruto pulled away from the hug. Am I really adopted? You aren't playing a trick on me? Mrs. Haruno shook her head and smiled. No, sweetie, I'm not playing a trick on you. I'll get the guest room ready. Then tomorrow we'll get you some new clothes, okay? Naruto smiled. Sakura tackled him and hugged him tight. You're my new little brother. Naruto frowned. Why am I a little brother? I want to be a big brother. Sakura smiled, because I was here first and the one that is there first is the big one. The next day, Mrs. Haruno smiled as Naruto was dragged through the store by Sakura. She had seen several evil glare from store owners, but Naruto seemed so happy to actually have a playmate that he didn't even notice. Just then the store owner walked up, holds Sakura by the arm and Naruto by the ear. Ma'am? Is this little girl yours? Mrs. Haruno nodded. Sakura was quickly released and ran to her mother holding onto her leg. Mrs. Haruno's eyes narrowed. You want to let him go too? Naruto writhed as the store owner's grip tightened. He whimpered as his eyes begged Mrs. Haruno to help him. I'm sorry, but little monsters like this one are not welcome. He's not a monster. He's a little boy. The owner sneered at her. You may not know, but this little boy is really the owner was interrupted by a puff of smoke. Kakashi stood there with Naruto already safe in his grip. Now I know you were not about to break the 4th rule, right? The owner quickly shook his head and walked off. Mrs. Haruno smiled. You seem to show up at just the right time, mister. Kakashi smiled behind his mask. Kakashi. Hitaki Kakashi. Mrs. Haruno nodded. Kakashi, huh? I think I remember my husband mentioning you. He said you had a lot of potential. Kakashi nodded. He was one of those who died during the attack. He frowned as memories came back. A lot of people died that day. Flashback. Yondaime looked down at Kakashi and smiled. You know what I had to do, right? Kakashi nodded. Everyone will be gone then. Yondaime put his hand on Kakashi's shoulder. I know. I'm giving you one last mission though. Make sure you keep an eye on Naruto for me. End of flashback. Kakashi shook off the memory. Anyway, I'll stick around to make sure no one gives you any trouble. He then felt a tug on his pants. He looked down to see Sakura standing there looking up to him. Why do you only have one eye? It looks funny. Kakashi shook his head. Well, looks aren't everything, kiddo. He held his hand over his covered eye. My other eye is a special gift from a friend. Maybe one day I will show it to you. Sakura smiled happily. Okay. Come on, Naruto. She grabbed Naruto's hand and once again started to run around the store. Switch. The group slowly made it up the last few steps of Hokage Tower. Mrs. Haruno turned and looked at Kakashi. Would you mind watching them while I go in and sign the papers? Kakashi nodded and Mrs. Haruno stepped into the Hokage's office. Sarutobi stood as she entered. Oh, Mrs. Haruno. I'm glad you came. Where are the children? Mrs. Haruno smiled. Kakashi is outside watching them. We ran into him when a store owner gave us a little trouble about having Naruto in the store. Sarutobi nodded wisely. I see. This is proving to be a problem. Are you sure you want to adopt the child? Of course I am. He's so sweet, and Sakura is completely attached to him. Sarutobi reached for a stack of papers and turned to the last page, then simply just signed the papers. I had a word with the head of the orphanage this morning and picked up the papers. I've also taken the precaution to put his treatment of Naruto under investigation. Mrs. Haruno smiled as she signed the papers. Whatever happens, he deserves it. Sarutobi looked over the papers and smiled. I must say I am very impressed by your attitude. Most hate the child with no reason, but your husband was one of those who fell during the battle. That was Kyuubi, not Naruto. Sarutobi nodded and reached for an envelope. He then handed it to Mrs. Haruno. This is for you as well. It was given to me to relay to anyone who ever adopted Naruto. Mrs. Haruno slowly opened the letter. Dear reader, I must express my thanks for you taking care of my child. I wanted nothing more than to be there for my son as he grew, but I had to do what I did to help protect the village. It would be best to keep my identity away from the public right now. My enemies are many, and I do not wish them to be a burden upon my child. Therefore, I ask you to keep my identity from my child until he is grown. I have set aside a certain amount of my riches for Naruto when he is older. However, I have also set aside a quarter of my earnings for the family generous enough to take my child in. Think of this not as a bribe but as an ongoing mission. Please make sure my Naruto has a happy life. Thank you for your kind heart. The fourth Hokage. Mrs. Haruno looked up in shock to see Sarutobi holding out his check. You will receive a portion of the money left for Naruto's parent every week until Naruto is grown. Mrs. Haruno looked over the check and almost choked. She wouldn't have to work extra hours at one of her jobs. In fact, she didn't even need her second job anymore. Tears appeared in her eye. He gave me one last gift. A chance to actually watch my two children grow. She then walked out the door to see Naruto and Sakura playing with Kakashi. Come on you two, let's go home. Mrs. Haruno smiled as her two kids ran ahead of her. Actually, to be more accurate, Sakura once again had Naruto by the wrist and was dragging him ahead. Sakura was even more anxious than usual on her way to meet her only other friend in the entire village. She has blonde hair just like yours, little brother. She's like super smart about flowers and junk too. Naruto kept quiet and allowed himself to be drugged towards their destination. He was a little hesitant about meeting new people, especially when Sakura mentioned that her friend's dad was a powerful shinobi. He never knew why, but it was the shinobi who seemed to always hate him the most. Except for the third and Kakashi, that is. His mind stopped when he saw a flash of blonde hair. He looked up to see a man and a little girl standing there talking. The girl caught sight of Sakura and seemed to grow a welcoming smirk. Sakura gasped for air, trying to catch her breath as they got to the pair. Mrs. Haruno was still a few feet behind. Now Sakura, what have I told you about running ahead of your mother? Scorned the man. Sakura blushed and bowed. I'm sorry, Mr. Yamanaka. Inoichi chuckled slightly and patted her head. That's okay, Sakura. Just be more careful, okay? He then bent down to Naruto's level. And who is your new friend? Naruto turned his face away from the stranger. Inoichi's eyes narrowed. A handful of other people with blonde hair like my family. And being that age, it means it's one person. Sakura stood proudly. That's my new little brother Naruto Uzumaki. Ino scoffed. No, he's not. She pointed her finger at Naruto. He looks nothing like you and your mama. Inoichi looked at his daughter. Now Ino, what have I told you about judging people from your first impression? Ino's arm fell to her side as she frowned. Not to. Okay then, why don't you take Sakura and Naruto to go play? Ino smiled and took both of their arms and ran off. Mrs. Haruno walked up and stood beside Inoichi, staring at the two. They seem to be getting along well? Inoichi nodded. They'll prove to be good friend. He then looked over at Mrs. Haruno. You know it isn't going to be an easy life for him. I know, but I think if I just love and support him he will be just fine. Are you sure you're okay with Ino playing with him? Inoichi chuckled. My little girl can handle her own. Ino looked at the pair in front of her with her hand on her hips. Great, another one with a shell I have to break through. She walked closer to Naruto and looked him up and down before leaning in and staring at his whisker marks. What's with those marks on your face? Naruto took a step back, not being used to someone being so close to him. He put his hand on his whisker marks and frowned. I was born with them. My new mommy says it means I'm special. Ino narrowed her eyes as she processed his answer. You okay with them? Naruto nodded shyly. She smirked and started to lead the group off. At least you're not as bad as Forehead when I found her. Hey, switch. Inoichi and Mrs. Haruno watched as the three talked. Inoichi chuckled, she's already established herself as the leader. Mrs. Haruno nodded, well, Sakura was never one to lead. And Naruto is still too shy to say much of anything. Switch. Ino stood explaining the game to her two friends. Okay Forehead, you'll be the mean evil queen. Why? Because I say so. Okay. Ino then pointed at Naruto, and you Whiskers are the brave ninja that comes and saves the princess. Naruto stared at her, what's a ninja? Ino pointed at her dad in the distance, they're a person like my dad. They're brave and strong and they protect people. Get it? Naruto nodded. Good so. Who's the princess? Ino growled as she glared at Naruto. You're not making this easy for me, you know that? Naruto looked at the ground. Sorry. So, you're the ninja that helps saves the beautiful princess from the evil queen. You still haven't said who the princess is, mumbled Naruto. Ino glared at him. I am. How am I supposed to save you? Ino smiled. Well, you're going to turn you back and count to 10. Sakura and I am going to hide, and you have to find me. Sakura stared at her. What do I do? Your job Forehead is to hide me. She then looked at Naruto. Any other questions Whiskers? Naruto looked embarrassed. No. Ino smiled. Okay then. Close your eyes and count to 10. As soon as Naruto closed his eyes, Sakura grabbed Ino's arm and ran off. 1, 2, whispered a voice. Naruto looked to his side to see Inoichi standing there smiling. 2, 3, and this continued till 10. Naruto turned around and looked around. Inoichi raised an eyebrow when Naruto's nose twitched and the young boy then ran off in the exact direction Sakura took Ino. Sakura looked from the hiding spot and saw Naruto. She then took Ino's arm again and started running. Naruto's ears twitched as he picked up the sound and soon ran after it. Inoichi smirked at this, he doesn't even know he's doing it. 5 minutes later Sakura peeked out from their spot and saw Naruto standing there in his line of vision with a proud smile on his face. Do I win now? Ino pooped up and hugged him as she screamed dramatically, my hero. She then playfully kissed him on the cheek and ran off. Naruto blushed as the two girls ran back to their parents. He quickly hid his embarrassment and whipped off his cheek and followed the two girls. When he got there, Ino was telling the story of how Naruto bravely found and saved her. Naruto was slightly uncomfortable due to never being praised before. And even after Forehead hit us again, he still found us really fast, finished Ino. And Ino kissed him, teased Sakura. Ino stuck out her tongue, cause that's what the princess is supposed to do when they get saved. Inoichi chuckled as he patted Naruto's head, good job kid. You would make a fine ninja with those tracking skills. Naruto's eyes shone as he thought about what was just said. When I grow up, I want to be the bestest ninja ever. Mrs. Haruno smiled happily as she sat down after finishing the morning chores. She actually had a day off from work and the house was quiet. Her two kids were at the academy taking their final test. She smiled as she thought of Naruto rushing through the door showing off his new forehead protector. Sakura would come in behind him and yell at him about hogging their mom's attention. Even after 8 years they got along perfectly. Neither Naruto nor Sakura could really remember the time before Naruto came to be a part of the family. They fought sometimes, just like all siblings do. Mrs. Haruno reached down beside her chair and picked up a picture book sitting on end table. She flipped open to the first page and smiled at the picture. There was a little Naruto covered in confetti and a party hat sideways as he smiled brightly for the camera. His first birthday. Flashback. Naruto woke up that morning like it was any other morning. Of course that meant he slept in as long as he could before Sakura came into his room and started to whine and pull at his arm begging for him to come play with her. But this time it was different. Sakura burst into the room with her blonde partner in crime and they both jumped onto Naruto's bed. Wake up Whiskers. You going to sleep all day? Naruto rolled over and tried to go back to sleep. Ino had spent the night with Sakura, and the three had been up late, or at least what was late for a 4-year-old, playing. Ino huffed as her cheeks poked out. She did not like being ignored. Wake up now Whiskers or I'm going to give you a big sloppy kiss and give you cooties. Naruto's head quickly retreated under his covers to help protect him from the evil girl cooties. Ino had told him about them the night before. When a girl kissed a boy on the cheek they gave the boy cooties, and it would make the boy sick. The infected boy would want to do sissy stuff like play house and play with dolls, while the non-infected boy would want to do manly things like play in the dirt and bury aforementioned dolls in aforementioned dirt. Ino tried to pull the covers off of Naruto but with no luck. Sakura decided it was time to show Ino the quickest way to get Naruto up. Little brother, Uncle Kakashi is here. He said if you got up right now he would show you a ninja trick. Before they knew it, Sakura and Ino were both thrown off the bed and planted with a thump on the ground as Naruto ran out the door to see famous copy ninja. When he got downstairs, he found not only his mom and Kakashi but also the third and Ino's parent. He looked around trying to figure out what was going on. Mrs. Haruno walked up and kissed his son on the forehead. Ino had mentioned that moms were immune to cooties. Happy birthday my growing little boy. Naruto scratched his head. What's a birthday? He was answered with a slap to the back of the head. You really are a baka whiskers. A birthday is a magic day when you get a whole year older and everyone gives you presents. Naruto's eyes lit up. Presents? Ino nodded. Yeah huh, then everyone sings this song and you get a cake. Naruto was literally bouncing with joy. Cake? Ino nodded again, obviously slightly excited cause she knew she would get to have some of the cake as well. Yep, so happy birthday whiskers. She then kissed him on the cheek. Naruto quickly tried to wipe it off. Ew. End flashback. Mrs. Haruno smiled. Those three had been practically inseparable throughout the years. She flipped the page as it showed Naruto staring angrily face to face the unemotional face of a certain black-haired boy. Well, they were inseparable until Sasuke showed up. Flashback. Naruto, now 7, picked up a rock and threw it across the lake. Uncle Kakashi? Kakashi looked up from his book. Yeah? What's it mean when a girl says they like someone? Kakashi quickly choked and dropped his book. What? Naruto turned and looked at Kakashi. My big sister and Ino were arguing about this boy the other day. They kept saying they liked him more. So what does it mean when a girl says she likes a boy? Kakashi sighed. I think that is something you should ask your mom. But don't worry about those two fighting, nothing could drive them apart. Naruto frowned as he picked up another rock and mumbled, stupid Sasuke. Better hope I never meet him or I will have to kick his butt. Big sister and Ino won't even play with me anymore. End flashback. Mrs. Haruno chuckled at the red-faced Kakashi had that day when he brought Naruto home. He was definitely not good at handling the more sensitive issues about raising kids. She flipped past a few more pages. Pictures of the family vacation to the beach. Pictures of the time Ino and Sakura had forced Naruto to dress up like a girl and wear makeup. Pictures of a shirtless Naruto doing push-ups while Kakashi did the same except with one finger. She laughed when she remembered the first time Naruto met one of Konoha's most interesting shinobi and Kakashi's eternal rival. Flashback. Naruto, now 12, walked beside Kakashi telling him about all the stuff he had learned at the academy, and Iruka-sensei says I'm having a little trouble with the henge jutsu, so do you think you could help me with that later? Kakashi looked down as his eye closed showing he had a smile on under his mask. Sure thing kid. You know the henge is a very important jutsu for a student to know. It can help them disguise themselves if they are ever being chased by a large group of enemy shinobi. Kakashi let out a sigh as he turned around to meet the person who addressed him. What is it, guy? Can't you see I'm busy right now? Naruto was shocked as he turned and saw a man dressed in green spandex. The second guy saw Naruto, he rushed forward and was immediately in the young child's face. He looked the child over as he seemed to be examining him. Who are you? Naruto was not sure how to answer. His mom had told him to never talk to strangers, and they didn't come stranger than this guy. But of course his uncle Kakashi could take this guy quick, so Naruto decided to tempt fate. Naruto Uzumaki sir. Guy rubbed his chin. Yes I see. Then in a flash Guy was standing up straight and giving both Kakashi and Naruto the thumbs up as his teeth gleamed in the sun. My eternal rival has picked a wonderful apprentice. Though I must say, Kakashi, I thought you had your eye on that Uchiha boy. Naruto growled. Sasuke. Kakashi sighed. You're reading too much into things again, Guy. Naruto is just a young student that I have known for many years. I am helping him with a few jutsu he is having trouble with. Guy nodded again with his hand on his chin. I see. A fire suddenly seemed to appear behind Guy. Your flames of youth are strong, young Naruto. Here he goes with that flames of youth crap again, mumbles Kakashi. Guy was now repeatedly slapping Naruto's shoulders. If you wish to master Taijustu then please come and seek my help. I shall work with my eternal rival to help raise such a promising youth. End flashback. Naruto had to sleep with the lights on for a few days after that. Kakashi had stated it was perfectly normal. Mrs. Haruno chuckled as she came to the last picture. Naruto didn't even know this one was taken. It had happened on Ino's last birthday. Flashback. Ino sat on the balcony that was above her parents' shop. Her feet kicked as they dangled over the edge. Today was her birthday, but her dad had been off on a mission and her mom had to run the shop all day. They had told her that they would take that Saturday off and celebrate it then. She was slightly surprised when she felt two hands covering her eyes. Guess who? Ino chuckled slightly. Well, there is only one person I know whose breath reeks that badly of ramen, Whiskers. Naruto let go of his hold and sat down beside Ino looking out over the city. Sakura said to tell you hello, and that she wouldn't lose to you. Ino smirked. We'll tell forehead that I would not lose to someone so ugly anyways. Naruto chuckled. I'll tell her you say hello back. Ino looked over at Naruto gazing out at the city. You're the only one that understands the two of us, Whiskers. Naruto smiled as he laid back and looked up at the stars. Someone has to, I guess. And why not me? I've known you two for forever. Ino mimicked Naruto as she started to lay back and watch the stars as well. She looked to her side as Naruto pushed a small wrapped box towards Ino. Happy birthday, beautiful princess, joked Naruto. Ino blushed. Don't call me that. You know we have not played that game in years. Naruto nodded. Just open it. Ino unwrapped the present to reveal a small jewelry box. Mom said that you would start wearing jewelry soon, so I thought maybe you would like something to keep it in. Ino opened it and music started to play as the figure of a princess spun around. She almost closed it when she saw the inside of the lid had something written on it. She opened it again. I will always be there to save you if you need it. The brave ninja. Ino sniffed back a tear and looked over at Naruto, who was now sitting up. She quickly hugged him. Thank you so much, Whiskers. Naruto smiled slightly. You're my best friend, Ino. I promise no matter what happens from now on it will stay that way. Neither of them noticed their two mother had come up to get them. Mrs. Haruno had quickly ran back downstairs when she saw Ino opening her gift and gotten back in time to see Ino scoot closer to Naruto and kiss his cheek just like she used to. End flashback. Mrs. Haruno smiled slightly. Those three had been through a lot. And even though Sakura and Ino were constantly fighting over Sasuke, she knew when everything was down, three of them would stick together. She was broken out of her thoughts when she heard running down the hall. She quietly put down the book and turned to meet her two kids, but was surprised when it was Iruka, not Naruto, who ran through the door. He seemed out of breath. It's Naruto, he knows. Mrs. Haruno's heart stopped at that moment. Earlier that day, Naruto rolled his back to the window as sunlight started to shine through. He heard some footsteps coming down the hall. He then heard his door open. Oi brother, get your butt out of bed. You can't be late like you usually are. Naruto groaned. Go away. Sakura smirked as she put her hand on her hip. This was the way it always was. She would always be the one up first, and Naruto was always the one that woke up the last second and as a result was sometimes late. She gave out a fake sigh. Well, I guess you will miss out final exam then. And you'll have to repeat your last year at the academy all over again. Naruto jumped out of bed and looked around with a smile. It's graduation day. Sakura chuckled as she stepped out the door and closed it so to not get any unwanted looks at her little brother changing. She then walked downstairs picking up her lunch bag. She kissed her mom on the cheek and started out the door. See you later, Mom. Wish us luck. Mrs. Haruno looked up and smiled at her daughter. Aren't you going to wait for your brother? Sakura chuckled. 3.2.1 Naruto ran down the stairs and grabbed his lunch and kissed his mom's cheek before running out the door Sakura was holding open. Bye, Mom. I'm coming back a ninja. Mrs. Haruno smiled at her daughter. Good luck. Make me proud. Sakura nodded and started down the street after Naruto. They weren't that far before they saw a blonde-haired girl waiting on the corner. Naruto smiled and waved. Ino-chan. Ino smiled as she saw her two friends coming. She quickly regained her straight face to prepare for her and Sakura's morning ritual. Sakura sneered as they finally caught up to Ino. Hey Ino pig. I see you forgot to wear makeup today. Have you finally decided to give up on Sasuke-kun? Ino scoffed, I just didn't want to blow you out of the water forehead. I had to play down my natural beauty so that you have a chance. Naruto smirked at the two. Why can't you two just say good morning like normal people? Why do you two like that stupid Uchiha anyways? He quickly received two fists smashed onto the top of his head for that. He fell to the ground and rubbed his head. What was that for? Sakura looked down at him with a scowl. Don't call Sasuke-kun stupid. Ino nodded her agreeance. Yeah, and stop adding the chan to the end of my name. Sasuke-kun might hear you and think I'm not available. The two girls then huffed and left the male to jump off and run to catch up. At the school, Naruto looked around the park next to the academy. All the other kids' parents were there cheering them on. Naruto and Sakura had insisted that their mom enjoy her one day off and relax instead of come to school. Naruto also promised to give her the play-by-play of his great victory over the evil final exam. He looked up and saw one of the teachers walk up him. He bowed, "Good morning Mizuki-sensei. Thank you for your help." Mizuki smiled down at Naruto. "No problem Naruto. Good luck in the test today. I will be cheering for you." Naruto nodded and started off towards class. During the test, Iruka looked ahead as Naruto stood before him and a few other teachers. "Relax Naruto. We're just going to get you to perform a jutsu to show us how skilled you are. And I don't want any of your little jokes either." Naruto nodded. "Yes Iruka-sensei." He seemed to be extremely serious for once. "I will become a great ninja just like Kakashi and Old Man Hokage." "Okay then good. Why don't you go ahead and perform a Bushin jutsu for us?" Naruto nodded as he concentrated and summoned the required chakra before 5 more Narutos appeared in front of the teachers. Iruka smiled slightly and nodded. "Very good Naruto. You pass." Naruto jumped into the air with a shout. "What do you mean he passes?" yelled one of the other teachers. "Do you know what he is?" Iruka stood from his seat. "That information is forbidden and you know it." The teacher was irate now. "I don't care." He pointed a finger at Naruto who was now watching the adult. "That thing is the Kyuubi that attacked our village." Just as the words were spilt out of the teacher's lips, Anbu appeared in the room. They quickly escorted the rabid teacher out of the room. Iruka sighed in relief. That was until her turned and looked at Naruto. Naruto stood there completely still as his forehead protector fell loosely out of his hand. He was in complete shock. "The Kyuubi? I'm the Kyuubi? I'm the one that killed Sakura's dad?" Iruka took a deep breath. "This is not good." He took a step towards Naruto. "Naruto." Naruto took off out of the room then out of the school. Iruka started to go after him but Mizuki stopped him. "I'll go talk to him. You continue the exam." Iruka nodded. It didn't take long for Mizuki to catch up to Naruto. He was huddled up in the corner of the academy ground. Mizuki bent down to Naruto's level. "Pretty big secret huh?" Naruto nodded as he sniffed, revealing that he was also crying. Mizuki showed a small smirk that Naruto missed. "I know a way to get rid of it?" Naruto's head snapped up looking at Mizuki. "You do?" Mizuki nodded. "All I need is one little scroll." Back to the present. "Where is he?" asked Mrs. Haruno through her tears. Iruka sighed. "We don't know. No one has been able to find him since he took the forbidden scroll." Kakashi poofed into the room with Sakura and Ino next to him. "We're going to go look for Naruto. If we find him before the others he may get out of this in one piece." "I don't get it. Why would the baka do something like this?" asked Sakura near tears herself. Kakashi looked down at her. "You stay here with your mom and Iruka just in case he comes back." "What about finding Naruto?" asked Sakura. Kakashi smiled and he slammed his hand to the ground and a small pug in a shinobi outfit appeared. "Pakin, Naruto has ran away. Help us find him." "I told you that brat would be trouble," stated Pakin. He walked outside and sniffed the air. He looked back at Kakashi. "He's not too far, but there is someone else there watching him." Kakashi nodded. "Lead the way." He then looked back at Ino. "Come on." The two ran off after the pug. With Naruto. Naruto looked at the first jutsu in the scroll. "I might as well try this while I wait for Mizuki-sensei to show up." He tried the technique several times before he got it right. He was almost exhausted when Mizuki dropped from his hiding spot. "Good job Naruto, you got the scroll. Now hand it here." Naruto nodded and pushed the scroll towards Mizuki. "Are you going to get rid of it now?" Mizuki looked over his scroll and smirked. "Oh, the young are so foolish and quick to trust." He rolled up the scroll. There is no way to get rid of the Kyuubi. You're stuck with being a monster for the rest of your life? Naruto stuttered, "BB, but you said." Mizuki smiled sickly as he pulled out a kunai. "Oh, I'm going to get rid of the Kyuubi. I'll just have to kill you to do it." He charged Naruto and drove him into the wall, holding his forearm against Naruto's throat. Naruto struggled to get free as he gasped for air. He managed to push Mizuki off with his feet, only to have Mizuki do a flip and hit Naruto's chin with his foot. As Naruto fell to the ground, he hit Naruto with an elbow to the gut and drive Naruto into his waiting knee. He was about to charge Naruto for the final blow when Kakashi appeared between the two of them. Ino saw the injured Naruto and ran to help him. Kakashi growled as he stared at Mizuki, who was holding the scroll. "So you got Naruto to steal that for you?" Mizuki smirked. "What can I say? This village hates him anyway and would just love a reason to justify that hatred." "Why are you doing this now?" asked Kakashi. "Let's just say I know someone that would pay pretty well to get his pale hands on this." Mizuki then readied to fight. "So, you going to try and kill me, Kakashi?" Kakashi chuckled. "No, I sent Pakin to go get Anbu. They should be here any moment." As if on cue, 2 Anbu guards showed up. Kakashi quickly explained the situation and they showed Mizuki off. Kakashi then turned to Naruto and Ino. He bent down to Naruto's level. "You okay, kiddo?" Naruto refused to make eye contact. "I killed them all." Kakashi sighed and picked up the boy and looked down at Ino. "Let's go." The two shinobi watched as Naruto sat on his bed while his mom looked after him. Mrs. Haruno silently continued to check her son over for injuries. He had been silent since Kakashi brought him home an hour ago. However, the silence was about to end. "How can you not hate me?" Mrs. Haruno's head snapped up to meet Naruto's gaze. "How can you not hate the thing that killed your husband?" Mrs. Haruno smiled gently, trying to calm him. "Because, you're Naruto, not the Kyuubi." Naruto's gaze fell to his lap. "That's not what the villagers think. They call me a freak and a demon and a monster." He closed his eyes as he leaned back, resting his head against the wall. "They're right, you know. I'm nothing but a monster." Mrs. Haruno sighed as she closed her eyes. "You remember when you were little and you would have nightmares?" Naruto nodded. "And you would wake up screaming for me and I would come running in?" Naruto nodded again. "You were not a monster then. You were just a scared little boy that had a bad dream." Mrs. Haruno rubbed her son's cheek with the back of her hand. "And that one time that bully tried to beat up on Sakura and Ino? And you got a black eye protecting them. You weren't a monster then. You were a brave young man protecting his friends. But, no buts. You are not the Kyuubi. You are Naruto Uzumaki and, more importantly, you are my son. And that means that I will always love you. What if I lose control one day and the Kyuubi gets out?" Mrs. Haruno reached forward and embraced her son. "Then we'll cross that bridge just like we have the others." Kakashi smiled as Naruto seemed to relax a little. He glanced at Iruka at his side. "The other two heard a lot today. Sakura is pretty smart. She'll figure it out." Iruka nodded. "We'll have to explain how important it is that this secret is kept between the people in this house and a few others." Kakashi sighed. "I'll go talk to them, I guess. You just make sure Naruto doesn't make a run for it." Iruka nodded as Kakashi made his way downstairs. Naruto smiled as he sunk into his mom's embrace. "Mom?" "Yes, dear?" Naruto pulled back and smiled slightly. "I passed the exam." Mrs. Haruno nodded and smiled. "I know." She then reached to his side table and picked up his forehead protector. "You dropped this at the school." Iruka brought it back. "He also said when you felt better he would take you to ramen to celebrate." Naruto was immediately overjoyed. "Ramen?" Iruka patted his wallet. "This is going to get expensive." "Switch." Kakashi looked at the pair of silent girls in front of him. He scratched the back of his head, trying to think of where to start. Well. "How is Naruto doing?" asked Sakura. Kakashi smiled behind his mask. "He's doing just fine. He has been through a lot today." "Yeah, the idiot better be happy that he didn't get in trouble for stealing the scroll," mumbled Ino. "He didn't do it on purpose. Mizuki-sensei tricked him," interjected Sakura as she defended her little brother. "But still, why would he do that?" asked Ino. Kakashi let out a nervous laugh. "Well, that was kind of what I needed to talk to you two about. But before I say anything, I must tell you that this is a S-class secret. I shouldn't even be telling you two this, but you deserve to know." Kakashi took a deep breath. How much do you two know about the Kyuubi that attacked 14 years ago? Minus 10 minutes later, Sakura burst into Naruto's room staring at him. Naruto gulped, I guess she knows. And boy is she pissed. Ino walked in after Sakura with the same angry face. Oh, they both know. This may hurt. They both slammed their fist onto Naruto's skull. The next time you do something that's stupid, I swear, I'm going to beat you senseless. Yelled Sakura. And you actually believed that crap that teacher said? Yeah, Whiskers, continued Ino, how stupid are you? You're not some stupid demon. I mean, other than the whiskers you can't even tell. Naruto blushed slightly as he mumbled, I guess this is not a good time to tell you two that I used to cheat at our hide-and-seek game. Cheated? Naruto nodded, yeah, I just kind of followed your smell. Ino's eye twitched, what are you trying to say, Whiskers? That we smell or something? Naruto quickly shook his head, no. I mean, I kind of followed your scent. Big sister smells like strawberries and you kind of smell like wildflowers. You both smell good, honestly. Both of the girls blushed. So, I would just kind of follow your scents. And when you moved I could hear your movements. Both girls looked at each other, cheeks still slightly pink, and nodded. Naruto's skull was once again introduced to his two friends' fists. Naruto rubbed his head. Ow, geez. I'm sorry, okay? Both girls huffed and walked out the room. Naruto quickly ran after them. Oh come on. It's not like I can turn it off or anything. Ino grabbed her coat and started for the door. I'll forgive you this time, Whiskers. I'll see you tomorrow. Mrs. Haruno cleared her throat behind the three teens. Naruto will walk you home. I don't want you getting hurt. Ino scowled, I can take care of myself. I'm a leaf shinobi after all. My dad even taught me a clan jutsu. Mrs. Haruno's glare put an end to the argument. Naruto took his coat from the hook and smiled at his mom. See you when I get home. I won't be long. Take as long as you want with your girlfriend, little brother, teased Sakura. Ino scoffed as he lifted her nose into the air, like I would lower myself to date Naruto. Sakura smirked, really? Remind me, who was your first kiss? Ino blushed slightly, hey, we were kids and that doesn't count. Mrs. Haruno sighed as she pushed Naruto and Ino out the door, you two get going now. She then shut the door to avoid any more argument. Switch. The walk was normal as any. They were silent for the first block before anyone said anything. You wonder when mom is going to stop making me walk you home? Ino smirked. Remember when she would walk with us? She would hold yours and Sakura's hand and I would hold yours, well, at least till the whole cuties period. Naruto glanced at her. I was traumatized for weeks. Ino's smirk grew. What can I say? You were gullible. She then shivered slightly. She was surprised when she felt another coat wrap around her. She looked at Naruto as he rubbed his arms. She started to take it off and give it back, but Naruto stopped her. You need it more than me. Ino raised an eyebrow. What if you get a cold? Naruto looked at her and smiled. When was the last time I got sick? Ino decided to let Naruto win this one argument and pulled the coat tighter around her. She couldn't help but breathe in his earth, ramen scent. They silently made their way the rest of the way to her house. They stopped outside and said their goodbyes. Ino leaned up and gently hugged him. Don't worry about what those stupid villagers say. Naruto nodded. Thanks. I really appreciate you being here when I need you. Ino blushed. No problem. Then Naruto did the last thing she expected. He kissed her on the cheek. It only lasted a second before he pulled away with a blush. Naruto. Naruto suddenly became interested in his feet. I thought about it, and there's never going to be a girl who likes me. And if there is, they'll find out my secret and not want anything to do with me. So I just thought that since you were always so nice and looking out for me, you should have my first and only kiss. Ino rubbed her arms as she blushed. She then remembered she was wearing Naruto's coat. She slowly took it off and handed it back. Thanks, for your coat I mean. Naruto took it and nodded sadly. Sorry I did that. We'll just ask like it never happened. Ino nodded slightly. Sure. Naruto smiled brightly. We'll see you in a few days. He then ran off towards home. Ino stood there outside her house holding her cheek in the exact spot Naruto had kissed. His words played through her mind. There's never going to be a girl who likes me. And if there is, they'll find out my secret and not want anything to do with me. She frowned slightly. You'll find someone eventually, Whiskers. Ino was surprised on the day they were supposed to split into groups and given a sensei. As she rounded the ever-familiar corner, she was surprised that first that she was not the first one there like usual, and second that only her pink-haired friend was waiting for her. Naruto had not spoken to her ever since he had walked her home that night. Her gaze fell onto the scowling face of Sakura. She raised an eyebrow. "What did you do to him?" demanded Sakura. "Huh?" Sakura crossed her arms. "Naruto. He came home after walking you back to your place only to walk up to his room and not come out until this morning. Then he said that was he going to go ahead of me so he could get there early. What does it have to do with me? Maybe he's still upset about what happened the other day," replied Ino as she tried to avoid eye contact. Sakura's eyes narrowed. "What happened?" Ino's eyes snapped up. "He kissed me, okay. He said that no girl would ever care for him and then the idiot kissed me." Sakura bowed her head. "He did?" Ino nodded sadly but then had a new look of determination. "Look, we can just ignore it and let Naruto keep avoiding me, or we can find him a girlfriend and prove him wrong." Sakura looked at her friend. "Who?" Ino revealed a smirk. "I have a few suspects." She then led her friend off as she explained her plan. At school, Naruto was sitting in his usual spot when the girls arrived. Ino and Sakura scanned the room until they spotted a certain Hyuga sneaking looks at Naruto. Ino smirked. "Prime suspect. Hinata Hyuga. Sakura will convince Naruto to join me and her and a group of friends for a celebration of graduating. Then all we have to do is boost Hinata's courage a little bit and get them alone together." Her thought process was interrupted by Iruka walking in. Iruka cleared his throat. "Okay, listen up." The students surprisingly quickly obeyed. He smirked. "I guess everyone is excited about meeting their team and sensei." He quickly remembered the conversation he had had only moments before. Flashback. Kakashi narrowed his eyes as he looked at the person in front of him. "Are you sure you can handle this?" Asuma took a drag of his cigarette and let out a puff of smoke. "Two special cases and a female who insists on being in charge." "What about you?" Kakashi sighed and he rubbed his forehead. "I knew I would get stuck with Sasuke. I can work with the other two choices." End flashback. Iruka had called out all of the teams except for two. The last 6 genins were anxious. Sakura, Naruto, and Ino kept sneaking glances at each other. None of them had been picked yet. Could they all be on the same team? Iruka looked at his paper. The next team will be led by Asuma. This group will consist of Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto could not help but feel slightly upset that he had not gotten Kakashi as a sensei. The two had grown close. Kakashi had even shown Naruto a few jutsu that may help him in the future. He was also thankful that Guy already had his team. Even though Guy did live up to his promise and trained Naruto several times in taijutsu. He already knew Guy's team and considered Ten and Lee friends. He was still trying to get used to the enigma that was Neji Hyuga. Ino Yamanaka? Ino couldn't help but be slightly happy that she would be teamed with her longtime friend. Sure, she would love to be on the same team as Sasuke, but what girl didn't? She scanned the last 4 people. Sakura, Choji, Shikamaru, and Sasuke. Ino smirked. She could still get Sasuke. Naruto was slightly nervous to be on the same team as his crush. There, he admitted it. At first he had ignored it. He knew that Ino would never fall for a guy other than her precious Sasuke. And, Shikamaru Nara. Sakura jumped into the air with a cheer. She was on the same team as her Sasuke. Sakura quickly spun around, stuck out her tongue at Ino. Ino jumped from her seat practically red in the face. What do you mean I get stuck with that lazy bums? She pointed an angered finger at Shikamaru. Shikamaru just looked at her with a bored gaze. How troublesome. Iruka sighed. Okay, you other 3. Your sensei is Kakashi. Class is dismissed. Be here after lunch to meet your senseis. The entire class is let out slowly but surely. Sasuke stood from his seat with his hands in his pockets as usual. He sighed. What do you want? Naruto was now in front of Sasuke with a menacing glare. I really do hate you, you know. Sasuke looked at him as if waiting for the rest. Sakura Haruno is my big sister. Sasuke smirked. And what does that have to do with me? Naruto growled slightly. If she comes back from a mission with a single scratch or hair out of place, I will kick you ass. Sasuke's smirk grew. You can try. But I would never lose to a doby like you. He then nudged past Naruto before walking out of the room. Naruto. Naruto paled as her turned to see a seething Sakura and Ino. He paled slightly as he laughed nervously and backed away. What's going on, girls? Sakura clenched her fist as Ino cracked her knuckles. Sakura smiled sweetly at her brother. What have I told you about threatening Sasuke-kun? Naruto took another step backwards. Sakura, I was just trying to look out for you. I'm not going to be there to protect you. Sakura sighed. Naruto, I'm a shinobi now. I don't need you to protect me like you did when we were little. Besides, if I get in over my head, Kakashi-sensei is there to help out. Ino nodded her head. Yeah, she'll be just fine. Besides, the Hokage just decided to throw her a bone since he knows that she never stands a chance from getting Sasuke-kun from me. She then grabbed Naruto by the arm, starting to drag him out of the room. Now come on. We need to go find our lazy-ass teammate. Naruto waved goodbye to his sister as he was pulled out of the room. Switch. Ino stood around looking either way. Where's that lazy bum anyway? Ino? Ino spun around to see Naruto looking at the ground. She was about to snap at him when she saw his sad expression. I'm really sorry. Ino raised an eyebrow. What for? Naruto kicked the dirt under his feet. About the other night. I'm sorry that I kissed you and everything. I shouldn't have. Ino hugged Naruto tight, quieting him. She let him go in about a minute. Don't worry about it. Besides, who better to give your first kiss to than the most beautiful girl around? Naruto chuckled and blushed. Ino looked around again. Now where? Ino. Ino looked back at Naruto again. Look, I told you it's okay. Naruto pointed to the right. Ino followed where he pointed to see Shikamaru laying on the ground staring at clouds. Ino marched over to Shikamaru and gave him a swift kick to the side. Shikamaru coughed as the wind was driven out of him. He rubbed his side, sat up, and looked over at the disturbance. Oh, it's you. What do you want? You know we should really spend this time getting to know each other better. Shikamaru narrowed his eyes. Ino, I've known you since before either of us could walk. He then looked over at Naruto, and I've known you ever since we were 6. I think we know all we need to know. Another voice interrupted them. You'll find out quick, there's a lot you don't know. The figures looked at the source of the voice to see a Chunin smoking a cigarette. Come on, I'll buy my new team lunch. Asuma then started to walk towards the center of town. Asuma sighed and patted his wallet as he watched Naruto wolf down another order of ramen. Kakashi wasn't joking about this kid's appetite. He couldn't help but be relieved when Naruto patted his stomach, signaling that he was finished. He signaled for the bill before Naruto could regain a third wind and ask for more. Ino shook her head. I still don't see where you put it at Whiskers. I swear a girl would kill for your kind of metabolism. Naruto laughed as he rubbed the back of his head. Mom says that I'm a growing boy and growing boys eat a lot. You passed a lot about 5 orders ago, Whiskers. Naruto continued to show his contagious smile. When are you going to stop calling me that? I mean, Whiskers will not strike fear in the heart of my enemies. Ino scoffed. What enemies? Someone plotting to destroy the village's ramen supply. Naruto suddenly showed fear. Don't joke about that. Asuma paid the bill and stood from his seat. Come on, you 3. Let's get this test over with and then we'll call it a day. He started off towards the training grounds. Ino ran after him. Come on, you 2. Naruto smiled and patted his stomach before following. You know she's going to boss us around, right? Shikamaru nodded. How troublesome. Ino spun around and looked at the 2. What are you 2 mumbling about back there? Nothing, they both answered. How should I test them? Kakashi said he was going to give the bell test a try. Kurenai said she would probably use some kind of search and destroy kind of thing. He took another drag of his cigarette as they arrived at the training ground. Ino butted into his thoughts. Sensei. That is really bad for you. You should really think about quitting. Asuma seemed to think it over. Nah, it helps me relax. Ino stuck her nose up into the air. Well, at least don't do it around us. Asuma smirked. Bingo. You want me to quit? Ino nodded. Asuma took one last drag of his cigarette before placing the pack in his front vest pocket. Then take them. What? Every squad must go through a test to see if they are ready to be a genin. Naruto suddenly butted in, but we already took the final test. Asuma chuckled. That test just saw if you had the potential to become a genin. This one will ask if you are ready or need to go back to the academy. Ino and Naruto paled. Shikamaru just sighed. How troublesome. Asuma brought out a stopwatch. You 3 have 2 hours. All you have to do is find me. Take the cigarettes from my pocket and burn them. If you do well enough, I will pass you and you will be my squad. If you three win, then I will not smoke for an entire month. Ino raised an eyebrow. All we had to do is catch you? Asuma smirked. Oh, it's not that easy. I will fight back, and I don't plan on holding anything back. But you're a Chunin. You'll slaughter us, yelled Ino. Asuma smirked. Do you think the enemy would lend you the courtesy of only fighting people on your level? Ino pouted. Not fair. Naruto smiled. Don't worry, Ino-chan. We'll win for sure. Shikamaru stayed silent. Asuma looked over the three. One is overconfident. One has pretty much already lost the battle in her head. He then looked at Shikamaru. Oh, this one is already thinking. This could be good. Don't you even want to know anything about us? Asked Ino. Asuma smirked and buttoned the pocket holding the cigarettes close. Pass the test, and then we'll do the whole introduction thing. He then stood in the middle of the field. Okay. Go. Asuma pushed the button to the watch and quickly vanished. Ino looked around. Great, now we had to go find him. Naruto growled. He should have stayed out here and fought me like a real man. You couldn't beat him by yourself even if you tried. Could too. Could not. Could too. Could not. Could too. Could not. Shikamaru sighed. Are you two quite done now? They both turned to Shikamaru. He dusted himself off. Good, then let's get started, shall we? -1 hour and a half later. Asuma looked around. They haven't even found me yet. Oh well, back to the academy for them. He just then caught sight of the team bouncing from tree to tree looking for him. Naruto yelled out in frustration, where are you, you bastard? Come out here and fight me right now. Asuma frowned. He's quite a bit of a hothead. He smirked when Ino landed next to Naruto, scolding him. Shut up, will you? Now he knows exactly where we are and we only have about 30 minutes left, stated a frustrated Ino. I'm sorry, but we're going to fail this exam and have to do the whole thing over with. How am I supposed to become a ninja if I can't even find one chimney stack? Asuma scowled. Chimney stack? Oh, he will pay for that one when we are done. They're getting frustrated, huh? Asked a voice. Asuma nodded. Yeah, but I don't see. He bowed his head. Crap. He turned his head to see Shikamaru sitting on a limb behind him with his hands behind his head. So basically you can go down there and face them, or I inform them of your location and you fight all three of us. Asuma sighed and jumped in front of the clearing in front of Ino and Naruto. Well, you three found me. Good distraction, you two. Ino smiled as Naruto seemed to be proud and rubbed the back of his head with a laugh. Shikamaru jumped down and landed behind Asuma. Asuma smiled as he entered a defensive stance, but of course you know you still have to get my smokes. Naruto chuckled as he entered a stance that was familiar to Asuma. Asuma chuckled. Seems you have been earning some from Guy. Naruto nodded. He may be a green spandex wearing freak, but he's great at taijutsu. Asuma smiled as he reached into his pockets and pulled out his trench knives. Then show me. Naruto charged at Asuma with a punch. Asuma easily dodged it and went for a slash with a knife. Naruto moved backwards, hitting a kick to Asuma's stomach and knocking him into the air. Naruto vanished and Asuma's eyes went wide. Does he know? It still needs some work, but this should prove my point. He wrapped his arms around Asuma, pinning his opponent's arms to his side. The both spiraled towards the ground, secondary lotus. The ground shook with impact. Asuma slowly stood, catching his breath. That kid is amazing. The dust cleared the battlefield to reveal Ino tending an injured Naruto. Asuma spun around and saw Shikamaru holding a very familiar sign. He looked down and jumped back just as Shikamaru's shadow made contact. Asuma smiled and looked over his shoulder at Ino and Naruto. Good move, kid, but you're baked now. And he vanished and reappeared behind Shikamaru, hitting the boy in the back of Shikamaru's neck with the blunt end of his knife. Shikamaru collapsed forward. Asuma looked back and kept his eyes on Ino. You're the only one that can still fight. Ino started to make a sign for her family's famous jutsu. Asuma chuckled and attacked before she could finish. He hit a sidekick, knocking her to the side. He then grabbed Naruto, holding a trench knife to his throat. It's over. I win. Suddenly Asuma felt something different. His arm holding the knife started to move away from Naruto. Ino and Shikamaru poofed out of existence. Shikamaru walked out. Hold his jutsu. Do it now, Ino. Asuma suddenly felt another presence in his body. His hand not holding the knife moved against his will and unbuttoned the pocket holding the cigarettes and pulled out the pack before dropping them in Naruto's waiting hands. Naruto crushed them in his hand. Both jutsu were released. Asuma chuckled, "When did you pull the switch?" Shikamaru smirked, 5 minutes after the test began. Naruto could smell you and find you. Me and Ino stayed hidden as he created shadow clones then used a hench to make them look like us. And then, Asuma leaned back and sat on the ground, "You just waited for me to be distracted long enough to attach yourself to my shadow." "Good plan, team." Ino brightened up, "Does that mean we?" Asuma sighed, "Well, guess I will start off. I'm Asuma Sarutobi. Yes, the third is my father, but I would rather not be known as that. I like my smokes and shoji. I hate anyone that sucks up to me because of who my dad is. My future dream is to become famous as a weapons master." He then pointed at Ino. Ino bowed, "Ino Yamanaka. I like flowers and working with my mom to create new breeds of flowers. I hate people who judge people from their own naivety. I want to become the greatest kunoichi in all of Konoha." Asuma next pointed at Shikamaru. Shikamaru Nara. "I like watching clouds. I hate troublesome things. I don't have any future dreams." "Lazy bum," mumbled Ino. Asuma chuckled and looked over at Naruto sitting beside him, "And you, kid?" Naruto smiled, "Naruto Uzumaki. I like my family and friends. Oh, and ramen. I really like ramen, especially the kind that Iruka-sensei bought me. I hate people who judge people. And I'm going to grow up and protect my friends and family and become the greatest Hokage ever." Asuma smiled, "Well then, congratulations on passing. Meet me here tomorrow for your first training session and/or mission." Those were solid clones. Asuma looked at Naruto, he's going to grow up to be a pretty good shinobi. He then reached for his cigarettes only to remember they were not there. Crap, I need to stop from some gum on the way home. It's going to be a long month. They had been a team for about a month now. They had several D-ranked missions that included find this old lady's cat about 5 times, babysitting a few infants. Finally Naruto had blown his top and complained about wanting an actual mission. So here they were now walking across the desert of the Wind Country. The sandy air hit Naruto in the face as they continued on in their journey towards Suna. He spit the dirt out of his mouth. "Every time I spit some out, even more gets back in." Asuma took a grateful drag of his cigarette. He had leapt for joy when the month was up and he could smoke again. But he did learn a very valuable lesson. Never bet against these 3 genin ever again. Don't complain. You asked for a real mission and now we got one. Thank Naruto team. Ino and Shikamaru both shot Naruto a glare, "Thanks Naruto." Naruto rubbed the back of his head and laughed. "How was I supposed to know that the older geezer would send us on a trip to deliver a message to another village? Well, if you didn't complain then we wouldn't be here. This place is so troublesome." Ino nodded, "For once I agree with the bum. What kind of idiots would live out here?" Asuma smiled back at his team, "That's the point. Suna's enemies would have a hard time crossing this land, so it would give them a strong advantage." They cleared one final sand dune to see several sphere-like structures. Asuma smirked, "We're here." The 4 shinobi stood looking at the city for a few seconds before vanishing out of sight. Few hours later, Naruto kicked a stone across the street before sighing and leaning against the building again. "I don't see why we couldn't go with him. This is boring." Ino smirked over at Naruto. "He probably thought certain people in our team may rub the Kazakage the wrong way." Naruto scoffed, "As if I care what a old man with sand stuck up his ass thinks about me." Ino chuckled slightly, "My point exactly." Naruto's head suddenly shot up looking around. His nose twitched. He scanned the crowd before making eye contact with a paled-faced man. Ino looked between the man and Naruto. "What is it, Naruto?" Naruto kept his eye on the man who smirked at Naruto before walking off. "That guy. He reeks of snakes." Shikamaru nodded, "He's also letting off a small feel of killer intent." Ino shuddered when she felt the intent herself. "Should we follow him?" Shikamaru shook his head, "This is not Konoha. Suna would not take it lightly for 3 foreign ninjas stalking someone just because he looked suspicious." Ino and Naruto nodded in agreeance. With Asuma, the Kazakage looked over the scroll for a moment before nodding and looking up at Asuma. "I thank you for delivering this message." Asuma bowed. "Thank you, Lord Kazakage. I would like to request that my team and myself would be allowed to stay in Suna for the night. My students are still young in their skills and would benefit from some rest." The figure of the Kazakage nodded, I will permit this. Asuma bowed again, thank you for your generosity Lord Kazakage. He then exited the room to collect his team outside the room. The Kazakage smirked, it's that time already. He looked at one of his guards, send for Baki. Switch. Asuma walked out of the building seeing his team sitting against the building. Shikamaru was looking at clouds as Ino and Naruto were making comments about the mission up to this point. He cleared his throat and the team was automatically to their feet. He smirked, if that scroll said what I think it did, we have some practice. Naruto patted his stomach, about time. It's almost time for dinner. Asuma chuckled, I almost think I would have been better off with the Akamichi kid than you Naruto. He started towards the restraint district, come on. We'll get food and a place to stay. We'll leave tomorrow. They all nodded. Asuma smirked, and I plan on making it back in a quarter of the time it took us to get here. Ino choked, but we would have to run at top speed the entire way. Asuma nodded, it will be good exercise. And I'm tripling your training regiments when we get back. He then started walking off without saying another word. Shikamaru just sighed, how troublesome. He followed after Asuma. Naruto grabbed Ino's hand and pulled her along, come on Ino, it's time for dinner. Ino ran along but kept her focus on their joined hands. What is this feeling I get when Naruto touches me? They made it a few blocks before they caught up with Asuma. Ino looked around at the city, it's amazing to see the way people live around here. It's so barren outside the city walls, but in here it's almost just like home. Shikamaru nodded, people adapt to their surroundings. This is the only thing they've ever known so they're used to it. Ino smirked as she mocked, people adapt to their surroundings. Don't tell me you actually have a brain under all that laziness. Asuma chuckled at the comment, I wouldn't be too surprised. Shikamaru's dad is pretty smart. He then looked around and sighed, where's Naruto? Ino looked behind her and spotted him standing there watching kids playing ball. She rolled her eyes, hey Whiskers. Move it. Naruto kept watching the kids who were laughing and playing. He couldn't help but be a little jealous, is that what it's like to be normal? Flashback. A 7-year-old Naruto ran towards the park. Ino and Sakura had went off with his and Sakura's mom. Kakashi and Inoichi were watching from afar. Naruto spotted a group of boys playing with a ball. He ran up to join but was quickly intercepted by a group of adults. Hey demon, leave our kids alone. Yeah monster, why don't you just go off somewhere and die? Yeah and take that traitor and her daughter with you. End flashback. Naruto's memory was interrupted by the second odd feeling of that day. But this one was much stronger. He looked around until he made eye contact with a group of shinobi coming their way. One guy dressed in some kind of suit with what appeared to be some kind of ears poking at the top of his head. A red-haired male with the kanji for love tattooed on his forehead. And a female carrying a large fan on her back. He smiled and waved at them. They all seemed annoyed with the fact. When they got closer the taller male of the group frowned down at Naruto. What's a weak leaf shinobi doing here? Naruto growled, who are you calling weak? The sand shinobi smirked and patted a wrapped package on his back. Maybe you would like a friendly little spart to prove my point. He shrugged the package off his back. Naruto growled and was about to answer when Kankuro, the sand shinobi paled as the shortest of the group spoke. Stop wasting time. The red-haired shinobi moved past Naruto not even glancing at him as he passed. Naruto. Naruto paled. There was only 2 people who said his name that way, and it was only when either of them were extremely upset. He turned as was faced with a obviously angry Ino. Hey Ino. The shinobi named Kankuro chuckled, so weak that you're letting a woman boss you around. That's just pathetic. Excuse me? Stated the female sand shinobi. Kankuro chuckled nervously, unless of course that woman is my beautiful, loving, forgiving big sister. The female shinobi smirked, nice try. She then grabbed him by the collar of his shirt and drug him away. As they passed Asuma the female mumbled an apology which Asuma nodded his apology as well. Shikamaru shook his head, leave it to you Naruto to actually make enemies the first night we're in a new village. Ino jumped from her spot on the hill next to their training ground, what? Asuma sighed, I nominated you 3 for the Chunin exams. Shikamaru sighed, so now we're going to have to go through more exams. How troublesome. I thought I was done with school. Asuma chuckled, actually, these are not like the graduation exams. This is going to be a lot more physical. It's going to test less what you know in your head and more of your skills as a shinobi. Naruto scratched his head, but don't we have to wait till next year? Guy-sensei made his team wait. Asuma shook his head, it's the sensei's choice as to when his students were ready. Guy thought it was better for his group to get a little more experience. What makes us different than them? Asked Ino. Asuma took a drag of his cigarette. Well, a lot of the time during the first few missions is spent to build teamwork. It's important that the Genin squad acts as a cohesive unit. But I realized that you three were special during your exam against me. You worked as a unit taking advantage of each of your strengths. Naruto chuckled while rubbing the back of his head. Ino just seemed to have a blush on her cheeks as she smiled. Shikamaru, well, he acted like he always did, completely and totally indifferent. However, I do advise that you each undergo individual training. Ino, Shikamaru, I assume that your fathers would like to take this time to help develop your skills for you individual clans jutsu. Naruto, my father is looking up one of his old students who has experience dealing with students of your type. I don't know when he will be here since he hasn't been in Konoha for many years. Until then, I guess you'll just have to figure something out for your own. Asuma then reached into his back pocket and pulled out 3 sets of papers. These are the forms you three have to fill out to apply for the exams. Have them at the school in time or you won't be permitted. He then poofed away. Shikamaru sighed. I guess I should go hunt down my dad. He's going to want to teach me another jutsu. How troublesome. He started to walk off. Ino smirked. See you later, Whiskers. Make sure you're not late to the exams. He then looked in the direction Shikamaru went. Hey lazy bum. Walk me home, it's on your way. Naruto started his own way home. He didn't get too far till he was greeted with a yell, Naruto. Naruto turned to see Lee rushing up to him. Naruto sighed. He was not in the mood for this right now. Hey Lee. Yash. How are you this day of glory's youthfulness, my eternal rival? Naruto frowned slightly. Why'd I have to be your eternal rival, Lee? Lee quickly struck the nice guy pose, because only your flame of youth rivals mine. Plus you have learned from Guy-sensei's eternal rival. But I've also studied with Guy. In fact, he started training me before he even met you. Lee thought this over for a second. That means your youthfulness burns with the flames of Guy-sensei and his eternal rival. I shall work 5 times as hard to equal your youthfulness. I will begin with 100 laps around Konoha on my hands. A sweat drop appeared on Naruto's forehead. You do that. Lee gave Naruto the thumbs up before running off. Give my greetings to my lovely flower. Naruto shook his head. I sometimes wonder if the only reason he hangs out with me is to see Sakura. He turned and watched a cloud of dust run towards the gate that lead outside the city. Then I realize I am give him way too much credit. He walked around the city. He had looked around trying to find his target. Come on, you have to be around her somewhere. He stopped when he spotted a patch of pink hair. Big sister? He moved closer, keeping silent. When he caught sight of the situation, her frowned. It was part of the sand team he met back in Suna. The female of the team seemed to be trying to convince her teammate to put down the boy he was torturing. Naruto raised an eyebrow. It's that Asuma-sensei's nephew? He sighed as he stood stretching his shoulders. I guess I'll have to get involved. He jumped from his spot and appeared in front of the sand male. I didn't think I would run into you two so quickly. The sand male smirked. Oi, it's the runt from the other day? I was hoping to run into you. He dropped his current hostage and shrugged off his wrapped package on his back. He then smirked as he patted it. I'll even get to use this when you know. Kankuro, I wouldn't do that if I were you. You know he wouldn't like it if you caused a disturbance, stated the sand female. Kankuro chuckled. Oh please Tamari. He isn't here yet. At least let me have a little fun before Captain Killjoy gets here. Kankuro. Kankuro and Tamari paled at the sound of the calm yet irritated voice. Kankuro turned, putting up a fake smile. Oh hey Gaara. I didn't think you would get here so quickly? Gaara kept his intense stare on his teammate. What were you about to do? Kankuro chuckled nervously. Oh nothing much. I was just going to teach the runt a little lesson in manners. Another voice entered the scene. I think it's you that needs the lesson attacking a village's people. A real shinobi would leave their battles with the shinobi of the village. Naruto frowned. Bastard. What is he doing here? Gaara looked at the new arrival before vanished and reappearing on the ground. He looked at Sasuke directly. I apologize for my teammate. Sasuke jumped to the ground. Are you taking part in the upcoming exams? Gaara nodded slightly, yes, and I suppose you are too. I would like to know your name. Sasuke smirked, Sasuke Uchiha. And yours? Gaara turned to walk away, Gaara of the Sand. He then stared to walk away followed by his teammates. Naruto was obviously pissed at being completely ignored. Don't you want to know my name? Gaara looked back at him with a slight look of annoyance, not really. Naruto growled and was about to say something else until he felt his arm being tugged. He turned to see his sister standing there smiling slightly. He smiled back and pulled her into a brotherly hug. Have you been safe? Sakura nodded against his body. She pulled away slightly. We took part in an A-rank mission. You should have seen Sasuke-kun. He was so great. Naruto looked over Sakura as if looking for any signs of injury. When he found none, he looked at Sasuke. I guess I should say thank you for protecting my sister. Sasuke turned and walked away. No need. She's my teammate. If she got hurt, she would slow us down. Naruto scowled when he noticed his sister's shoulders slump greatly. He put an arm around her, reassuring her, don't worry. The bastard will come around. He then started off in his own direction. Tell mom that I will be home in time for dinner. I'm looking for Kakashi to help me get ready for the exams. Naruto and the rest of his team entered the gathering room for the exams. He smirked when he noticed that Sakura's team wasn't here yet, as well as Lee. Could he help it if he just happened to let it slip that Lee had some major competition for Sakura's heart? Or that the fact that his big sister was completely head over heels with the Uchiha? Ino noticed Naruto's smirk and the fact he was looking at Team Guy. And the fact that Guy's star pupil was not there. She frowned. Naruto, where's that spandex-wearing freak? Naruto chuckled. Guy, you know that none of the senseis were allowed in this room. Ino grabbed Naruto by his shirt and forced him to face her, the other spandex-wearing freak. Naruto gulped. That was the bad part of his plan. Not only was throwing Sasuke to the wolves going to piss off Sakura, but Naruto's blonde-haired teammate as well. Lee? Well? Ino's grip tightened. What did you do? She looked around. Where's Sasuke-kun? Naruto gulped. He saw his opening when he saw a flash of green to his side. There's Lee right now. Why don't you go ask him? Ino gave Naruto one more death glare before storming off towards Lee. Shikamaru glanced at Naruto. You pitted them against each other? Naruto smirked. The bastard needed to be taken down a few pegs. Shikamaru sighed. How troublesome. Just then, Sakura burst through the door and headed straight for Naruto. He gulped. He then noticed Ino also making her way back towards him. Shikamaru noticed as well. Great, we're going to lose a team member before the exams even begin. Naruto chuckled as the two girls stopped in front of him. Hey girls, what's up? Bam! Naruto fell to the ground holding the two new knots forming on his head as he whimpered in pain. Then came the stereo. What did we tell you about encouraging Lee? Naruto saw his opening. Actually, Ino, you said it was a great idea if I saved Sasuke for you. Sakura turned to Ino. You what? Ino smirked. What can I say? I think you two would be a perfect couple. Sakura growled, and if you by happen ended up with Sasuke-kun in the process. Ino faked shock. Why Sakura? If I didn't know any better, I would say you think I was planning this just for my own benefit. Since when did you ever think of anyone else? Came a voice almost as loud as Naruto's as Kiba and his team walked up. Ino once again caught Hinata trying her best to watch Naruto while not making direct eye contact. Hello Naruto-kun, came a small voice. Naruto put his arm around Hinata as if she was an old friend. Hey Hinata. How have you been doing? Naruto-kun. He's touching me. She quickly turned red before passing out. Ino smirked. I hope I'm never that obsessed over a guy. She then spotted the object of her own obsession, Sasuke-kun. She quickly latched herself to Sasuke. Sasuke grunted in annoyance. Please let me go, Yamanaka. Ino released her hold, slightly hurt by his reaction, but Sasuke-kun, Sasuke frowned. I don't care. Just leave me alone. Naruto was about to say something to Ino's defense when two very familiar scents hit his nose. First, the smell of sand and blood mixed. He looked to his left to see Gaara staring at nothing in particular. The second, however, worried him. The smell of snakes. He had looked around and met the gaze of a young Konoha shinobi making his way towards the group. As he started to reprimand the group for being so loud and obvious, Naruto nudged Shikamaru with his elbow. When Shikamaru discreetly looked over, Naruto sniffed his nose as if having a slight cold. Shikamaru looked at him waiting for the continuance. Naruto quickly motioned at the new shinobi, who identified himself as Kabuto. Shikamaru nodded slightly. No one picked up except for a pair of proctors standing at the other end of the room. One smiled, "Isn't that the kid?" The other nodded, "He's already scouted out one of the other participants." "I guess something about the way he smells." The proctor looked through his sheets to see who it was that interested Naruto. Kabuto Yakushi. Failed 7 times already. But every time it's because he gave up and always in the last part of the exam. His one-on-one skills must be lacking. Yeah, that or he lacks faith in them. He's better known as a medic than a fighter. The group of rookies split and Shikamaru motioned for his group to move to an isolated corner. "What is it about our new friend that worries you, Naruto?" Naruto kept his glaze on Kabuto, who was now showing some kind of cards to Sasuke. "He smells like snakes." Ino scoffed. "So? He probably has a pet snake at home or something." Naruto shook his head. "No, like that other guy in Suna. Not as strong though." Shikamaru sighed. "How troublesome. For now, we'll just keep our eye out. Now here's the plan on this exam." -30 minutes later. Naruto smirked as their plan had reached its final stage. Ino used her mind transfer jutsu to get the answers from Sakura's paper. She would then use the same jutsu on Shikamaru, who would then use the shadows caused by the desks to take control of Naruto's arm and make him write the correct answers. As the test went on, people started to drop like flies. When he had originally not written anything, Hinata, who was next to him, offered to let him copy her paper, but Naruto said not to worry about him. He finished the last question when the 45-minute went up and the proctor started to once again try to intimidate the examinees to quit. Naruto stayed firm and in turn passed the first test with flying colors. His ears twitched as he heard a whistling. He looked away as the glass window was broken through as a ball landed in front of Ibiki Morino. Several kunai shot out of the ball as a banner appeared, as well as a female who, according to the banner and ladder on her loud self, was Anko Mitarashi. Naruto frowned as once again a scent hit his nose. He frowned. As his team continued towards the area appointed by Mitarashi, he looked at his teammates. "She has the smell too." Ino looked at him. "Who?" "The loud-mouthed proctor." He suddenly paled when a kunai barely missed him. In fact, he realized it grazed him as his cheek started to trickle blood. He shivered when he felt the creepy presence behind him. "You really shouldn't say those kinds of things," murmured Anko as she licked the blood. Naruto tried not to act too freaked out. "Sorry, you just seem to have a very popular scent." Anko stood up straight and looked at him curiously. "Popular scent?" Naruto nodded. "Snakes. You're the third person I have ever met that smelled like that." Anko nervously touched the back of her neck. Shikamaru took notice of some kind of seal there. She stopped though when she felt a presence behind her. "It's rude to interrupt." A grass nin apologized. "Sorry. I simply wished to return your weapon, Miss Proctor." Anko took it slowly and started walking off. Naruto frowned. "Make that 4." Naruto looked down from the treetops. They had just finished setting their traps around their area. That already had an earth scroll and just needed a heaven scroll to move on. He smirked. "At this rate we'll be done by the end of the first day." Shikamaru shook his head. "No, we'll stay around for a few days and get all the scrolls we can." "But why? All we need is a heaven scroll." Shikamaru smirked. "True, though when this test started there were 32 teams. 16 heaven scrolls, 16 earth scrolls. Now assuming we're lucky and the first scroll we get is a heaven, we could be stupid and just head straight for the tower. But if everyone did that, there would be 16 other teams at the end waiting." Ino nodded. "But for every pair of scrolls we get, that's one more team that won't pass the second exam." Shikamaru chuckled. "Which is one less team that we'll have to face in the third." Naruto frowned. "Sounds like cheating to me." Ino sighed. "Well, think of it this way. If we run into Sakura and her teams needs a earth scroll, and we just by happen have an extra one." Naruto nodded. "Okay, I'll do it. But I still don't like it." Outside the forest, Anko looked down with a pair of enbu at the dead bodies of 3 grass nins. She hadn't seen this kind of thing since. "Sorry, you just seem to have a very popular scent. Snakes. You're the third person I have ever met that smelled like that." Anko paled. "Tell Lord Hokage to meet me at the tower in the middle of the forest." "What is it, Lady Anko?" asked one of the Anbu. Anko continued to look at the bodies. "I'm not sure yet. But I think he may be back." She then started for the forest. "I'm going ahead to check it out." With Naruto in group, his team had already knocked off 5 different teams. He looked around for a next group when a scent hit him. Snakes. He then felt a very familiar killer intent, and it was close to another very familiar scent. Shit. Ino looked at him. "What?" Naruto took off towards the source of the scent. His team quickly followed. Shikamaru finally got tired of blindly following. "What is it, Uzumaki?" Naruto growled. "That guy from Suna is here." Ino was shocked. "What do you mean? That guy had to be a Chunin at least." Naruto nodded. "I know. And his scent is near Sakura's." Ino gasped. "She wouldn't stand a chance. He touches her and I will rip him to pieces." A very unfamiliar feeling started to leak from Naruto. It was almost primitive. Shikamaru noticed. "Naruto." Ino looked at him and motioned for him not to ask. He frowned. "They have some explaining to do later." Naruto picked up speed. He's running away, but there is something not right about this. When they arrived, they spotted Sasuke and Choji both out cold in a stump of an old tree. Sakura was currently trying to hold her own against one of the nin that appeared to be from the newly formed Sound Village. Lee's worn-out body leaned against the tree. Naruto growled. They had the same feel as the guy from Suna. He was about to leap out when Shikamaru grabbed his shoulder. Naruto growled as he shook it off. "I had to help her." "Naruto, look at your friend and the ground over there." Lee tried the lotus and none of the nin are hurt. "We don't know how strong these guys are." Naruto looked between the 3 and nodded to the one that looked like a mummy. "That one looks like the leader." They all watched as one of the nin was holding Sakura by the hair. They were amazed when Sakura took out a kunai, cutting her hair off and then latching onto the nin with her teeth. The nin continued to pound her, trying to get her off. Ino was upset now. "We had to save her. But what do we do about these guys?" Naruto growled. "I'll take care of that. Just be sure that no one saves them this time." Shikamaru nodded. "Go while he's distracted." Naruto burst into the opening and looked at his sister. "Did these people hurt you?" Sakura nodded her head. "But Sasuke-kun and Choji are hurt by some guy. He did something to Sasuke-kun. And something is wrong with Lee." The lead nin looked at Naruto. "How many friends do these people have?" Naruto turned and looked at the nin as he chakra flared. "You may have escaped the lotus the first time." He vanished and reappeared in front of the nin, kicking him into the air and the jumping up after him, wrapping his arms and legs around him. "But mine is better." Zaku smirked as he dropped Sakura. "That trick still won't work." He moved to counter the jutsu only to find that he was frozen in place. "What's going on?" Shikamaru stepped into the clearing. "My shadow possession jutsu was a success." Zaku looked at him, then back at Naruto and his teammate as they crashed into the ground. "Shit, Dosu." The cloud of dust slowly dissipated to reveal Naruto now holding the motionless body of Dosu. He dropped him with a sneer still on his face. His teeth were now sharper and more visible. He growled, "Now, I believe you were hitting my big sister." He looked at Shikamaru. "Let him go. Take care of the girl." Shikamaru nodded and released the jutsu as Naruto started to stalk the nin like an animal looking at its meal. Naruto licked his lips. He vanished and was now holding the nin by the arm that was hitting Sakura. His grip tightened till he felt a snap as the nin screamed in pain. Everyone watched in horror as Naruto seemed to just be playing with him now. Naruto was about to break the nin's other arm when he felt a pair of arms wrap around him. "Sakura, let go." Sakura shook her head against Naruto's back. "It's okay, Naruto. I'm okay. Just let them go away now." Naruto growled and looked at the writhing nin. "Your scroll. Give it over and go." The nin quickly nodded and placed it on the ground as he picked up his unconscious team member and took off. Shikamaru released his jutsu on the female and she ran after them. Shikamaru stared at Naruto. "What in the world is going on here?" Ino stared as well. "He'll have to tell you himself." He kept her gaze on Naruto. Sure, she knew that the Kyuubi was inside of Naruto, but it wasn't until this very moment that she believed it. The anger and bloodlust had leaked through into Naruto's overall kind nature. She had to admit she was slightly scared now. Sakura remained to hold Naruto as his breathing evened out. Sakura smiled. "Shish, it's okay. You saved me and everyone else." Naruto closed his eyes. When he reopened them, they were no longer red but crystal blue. He looked at his own hands and shook. What did I do? Sakura smiled gently at him. It's okay. You just wanted to help us. Naruto looked over at the earth scroll the nin's left. Do you need it? Sakura nodded. The guy that hurt Sasuke ate ours. Naruto nodded. Shikamaru. Shikamaru sighed and reached into his pack, pulling out a spare heaven scroll and laid it next to the earth. I expect an explanation of whatever the hell happened here. Sakura looked at both scrolls. They're ours? Naruto nodded. We got extra. He then stood and picked up Choji and looked up as Shikamaru took Sasuke. What about Lee? Asked Sakura. Suddenly Team Guy landed in front of them. We'll take him, stated Neji as he kept his gaze on Naruto. Naruto nodded. Thanks Neji. See you at the tower. The teams then split ways. Team Guy back to look for scrolls and the rest towards the tower. Sakura raised an eyebrow. Why didn't you give a scroll to Lee's team? Naruto chuckled, cause Neji would hate me for it. The two teams walked into the tower in the middle of the forest of death. Naruto put Choji down, leaning him against the wall. Shikamaru followed the action. Naruto then stood up and motioned for Shikamaru to follow. When they were far enough from the group, Naruto spoke. I didn't want to run the chance of one of them waking up and hearing what I am about to tell you. Shikamaru nodded. I take it that the girls already know then? Naruto nodded, along with most of the Chunin. What I'm about to tell you is a Class S secret. I shouldn't even tell you, but if we're going to continue to be teammates then I will have to trust you to keep it. So it's a secret and I've been left in the dark all this time. Shikamaru sighed. How troublesome. Naruto nodded. Have you heard the story of the Kyuubi's attack 12 years ago? Ino and Sakura watched on as Naruto told Shikamaru his secret. Sakura reached into a basin of water they had gotten and placed a wet clothes against Sasuke's forehead. What happened with that snake guy? Asked Ino. Sakura looked at her with a raised eyebrow. How did you know about him? We ran into him on a mission in Suna. Naruto recognized the scent and followed it. Sakura frowned. The guy did something to Sasuke. He said he left some kind of seal and that Sasuke would seek him out for power. Ino looked over at Naruto. When Naruto went ballistic, that was scary. Sakura nodded. We known that the Kyuubi was inside of him. Yeah, it's just more real now. What if you weren't able to calm him down? Sakura's eyes narrowed. What are you trying to say? Ino shook her head. Hey look, I know he's not the Kyuubi, but he was very dangerous back there. Sakura shook her head in disappointment and stood up, checking her teammates. He wouldn't hurt you of all people anyway. Ino chuckled. I know he wouldn't hurt either of his sisters. Sakura glanced at Ino. He doesn't see you as a sister. Naruto and Shikamaru made their way back to the group. The girls kept their glances on Shikamaru. He sighed. It would be way too troublesome to tell anyone that secret. Both of the girls smiled, knowing that meant that he could be trusted. Skip to end of second exam. The team that had passed the exam stood in front of the Hokage as he told the real reason behind the exams. Sasuke had woken up about an hour after they got to the tower. The only thing that bothered Naruto was something felt different and very dangerous about the Uchiha now. Choji had woken up about a day later and automatically stated his hunger. Naruto glanced the other teams. The Suna team as well as the other rookie team from Konoha had already been there when they got there. Somehow the sound team had found 2 more scrolls, even with one beaten up and the other with a broken arm. The Kabuto's Tam was there too as well as Guy's team. Naruto's Charka spiked when he saw the sounds team had made it to the next round. Ino heard a growl escape his throat. She caught his line of sight and quickly took his arm, calming him down. Naruto looked back at her and she gave him a slight smile. The Hokage asked for anyone who would like to forfeit their spot. Kabuto quickly took this option and left after saying something to his teammates. The matches began and surprised everyone when the first match consisted of a match that looked to be a final round match. Neji Hyuga vs Sasuke Uchiha. Everyone leapt up to the watching area as Neji and Sasuke stood below staring each other down. Neji smirked as he looked at Sasuke, Uchiha. Sasuke smirked back, Hyuga. The proctor signaled the beginning of the match. Both participants stared directly at the other, waiting for one to make the first move. Sasuke tried to activate his Sharingan and was met with immense pain in his neck, letting out a choked cough. Sakura looked down at the fight. Sasuke-kun. She then felt an arm go around her. She looked to her side to see Naruto standing there smiling and keeping his eyes on the fight. Don't worry. That bastard won't lose. He then pointed proudly at himself. That honor is saved for me and me alone. Neji smirked as he stared at Sasuke. So, you're still weak, Uchiha. This will be an easy fight. Fate has already chosen you to lose this match. He then activated his Byakugan and charged up his chakra in his arms as he attacked Sasuke. His eyes, started Sakura, there's something weird about them. It's the Hyuga's Byakugan, stated Kakashi. It's a bloodline similar to Sasuke's and mine Sharingan. But his is much stranger. It allows the user to see their opponent's chakra system. They then use their gentle fist technique close specific points to cut off their opponent's chakra flow. Naruto chuckled, so the bastard has a tough fight in front of him. Kakashi smiled behind his mask, none of these fights are going to be easy, kid. But I must admit Sasuke definitely could have used a much easier first opponent. Sakura anxiously glanced down at the fight. Sasuke-kun. A memory flashed through her head. Flashback. The third looked out over the crowd. Let me say this. If any of you have any hesitation towards this exam after this point, then quit now. Sakura glanced over at Sasuke as he kept his gaze ahead. She was about to raise her hand and say something when she felt an overly firm grip on her shoulder. She looked back to see Sasuke looking at her with something that could stood between anger and hatred. Do not tell anyone about this seal on the back of my neck, growled Sasuke. But Sasuke, she winced when his grip tightened. I am an avenger. I must move ahead, and this is the quickest way. If you or anyone else stands in my way, I will kill them. End of flashback. Naruto glanced at his sister. You okay, Sakura? Sakura shook off her daydreaming and looked at him, smiled. Of course I am. Sasuke-kun can beat this guy. Naruto looked down at the fight. Sasuke was kneeling on the ground gasping for air while Neji seemed to be just slightly winded. Up to this point it had pretty much been a one-sided battle. Neji smirked at his opponent. You shouldn't even be able to stand anymore. I've closed most of your chakra points. Sasuke tried to stand only to find that Neji was right. It was a struggle just to stay kneeling. Is this all the Uchiha clan had to offer? Neji then scoffed. No wonder they were killed off by one of their own. Sasuke's eyes lit up with anger. He tired once again to mold chakra and let out a scream of pain, but he pushed through it. Kakashi's eyes lit up. Crap, he's letting it take over. Suddenly the pain wasn't there anymore. The seal had spread to over the entire side of Sasuke's face. His voice had a much deeper tone to it as he slowly stood to his feet. I won't lose to someone like you. Neji raised an eyebrow. You are a lot stronger than I thought. He then summoned his chakra back to his hands. But fate has already declared me the winner of this fight. He charged at Sasuke and once again intended his chakra flow, but his wrist was caught by Sasuke. Sasuke leaned back, planting his foot in the gut off Neji, flipping him into the air and over them both. Neji landed skillfully on his feet only to have Sasuke appear in front of him. Sasuke smirked. Time to show you something new. Just for you. He kicked Neji into the air and appeared behind him. Lee stared wide-eyed. He copied my attack after only seeing it once? Sasuke smirked. Okay, I'll admit I borrowed that part. But after that it's all original. He landed several kicks and hits before driving his opponent into the ground. Lion combo. Neji laid on the ground motionless. Everyone in the stands froze. Sasuke shouldn't even be able to move, let alone land a devastating hit on Neji. Neji tried to stand but coughed up blood, leaning his head to the side. The proctor stood there for a second, letting out his own cough, and sighed. Winner, Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke stared down at Neji with a sickening smirk. The Uchiha am far superior to any Hyuga, let alone a member of a branch family. His cockiness was useless though as his own eyes rolled back, and he passed out. The medic nins quickly went to work and loaded both participants onto gurneys before pulling them to the side. The next match was announced. Temari vs 1010. Naruto felt a familiar aura and took a quick sniff. With so many different scents, several being snakes, he had missed it before. His gaze followed the scent and made eye contact with the sound sensei. Naruto scowled. Kakashi. Kakashi looked down at Naruto. Yeah? Naruto motioned at the sound sensei. That guy. He's the one that did that thing to Sasuke. Kakashi looked at the person in question. You sure? Naruto nodded. Yeah. They were both stopped with a gust of wind coming from the battle. The proctor coughed. Winner, Temari. Temari picked up her fan and rejoined her team. Naruto looked at the sand team. She beat 10-10 so quickly. That team is strong. The next match came up and Naruto smirked. Looks like I get to see how strong. He looked back at the battle announced. Kankuro and Naruto stood across from each other. Kankuro smirked. Sorry shrimp, my brother won't be saving your ass this time. Naruto clenched his fist and looked at the pack on Kankuro's back. Interesting statement, especially since the human scent is coming from that thing on your back. Everyone froze as the binding on the package unraveled to reveal another Kankuro. The new one chuckled. So, you saw through it? I'm impressed. There was a poof of smoke as the original Kankuro turned into a giant puppet. You should be honored that you're going to fall to my Karasu. Naruto scoffed. I hope you don't plan on that little doll helping you cause I'm going to turn that thing into firewood. Kankuro sneered. I'll teach you about being overconfident, kid. He motioned his hand towards Naruto as Karasu leapt into action. Naruto stepped to the side but before he could turn around Karasu grazed past him and he felt a quick prick. Naruto winced as he held the scratch. Kankuro chuckled. See, you've already lost the fight. Naruto went to say something but suddenly felt dizzy. He stumbled forward slightly. What? He then noticed the light catch something on the puppet's body. He focused and frowned. Needles. Kankuro nodded. You got that right, kiddo. But these specific spikes are coated with a very interesting poison. He then motioned his hand again as Karasu crashed into Naruto forcing him against the wall. See, these spikes won't kill the victim, just paralyze them. A needle gabbed into Naruto's arm. First symptom is a slight case of vertigo. Pretty soon you won't even be able to stand up straight. Another gab went into Naruto's stomach, so I suggest you just be a good boy and give up now. Shikamaru sighed from the observation area. How troublesome. He's really making us look bad. Ino nodded beside him. Well, he did really piss off that sand nen. Naruto struggled to move but found that hit was getting harder to breathe. Second symptom is labored breathing. But if you don't give up soon, you won't have to worry about this. Karasu opened its mouth only to reveal another poisoned needle. See, that is my special one right there. That one has a different type of poison altogether. And it is quite deadly. Kankuro then looked at the proctor. You want to all this or should I kill him? The proctor coughed then looked back at the puppet. Kankuro looked back at his opponent. He then felt a surge of charka coming from the same area. He took a step back as Karasu seemed to be thrown backwards by the outpouring of chakra. Naruto's eyes flashed red as a different chakra started to leak from him. All the wounds from the needles were slowly vanishing. A much deeper and savage voice came out of him. I won't lose to some freak like you that likes to play with dolls. The third watched with a raised eyebrow. Looks like I contacted his new sensei right on time. He'll help control that chakra. Kankuro took a step back in fear. That kind of change. I've only seen that kind of thing from one person. He looked up at his little brother and was even more terrified. Gaara was smiling. Not smirking, but full-blown smiling. He was watching this battle with actual happiness. That meant one thing for Kankuro. If I don't quit, I'm going to die. He quickly raised his hand into the air. He didn't have a chance to finish as he felt a punch to the gut knocking the wind out of him. Naruto growled as he pushed his fist a little harder into the gut of Kankuro. The Junins watching moved to intervene. The third raised a hand motioning them to stop. He then nodded to the proctor. The proctor raised a hand signaling the end of the battle. The winner by resignation, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto looked at the proctor as if deciding whether or not to listen. He slowly released his opponent who fell to the ground gasping for air. Naruto stepped up to the puppet and looked down at it in disgust. A real shinobi fights with their own two hands instead of hiding behind things like this to win the match for them. He then stepped on Karasu's head crushing it with his foot. He then walked back up to see the surprised faces of his friends. Kakashi was the first to speak as he messed with Naruto's hair. Going to have to learn to control that temper of yours. Naruto looked away shyly. He was quickly hugged by his sister and female teammate. You did it, Whiskers, yelled Ino as she hugged him tighter. Yeah, my brother is the best, agreed Sakura. Besides, my Sasuke-kun that is. Ino let go of Naruto and looked at Sakura. Your Sasuke? Sakura turned and faced Ino. Yeah, my Sasuke. Girls, interrupted Naruto. Not now, Naruto. I have a little thing I had to settle with your sister. Like how you were jealous of me being on the same team as Sasuke-kun. Girls? In a minute, I have to take Ino back to the pigpen. Watch it, forehead. Girls, you better hope I don't face you in this tournament or I will have to whip the floor with that pretty pink hair of yours. I'd like to see you try. Girls. They both turned to Naruto. What? Naruto pointed at the screen revealing the next match. Sakura Haruno vs Ino Yamanaka. Sakura frowned slightly as a grin crossed Ino's face. Looks like your time is up, forehead. Sakura smirked back. I won't be an easy win, Ino pig. Ino scoffed as she passed Sakura as she walked to the stairs leading to the stage. That matters on who you would be fighting. I'll be surprised if I even break a sweat. Sakura's face grew red in anger. Be careful or you may break a lot more. Naruto paled as he stood between Asuma and Kakashi watching the altercation. Are we sure they don't hate each other? Kakashi just smiled. Of course we are. They just have a friendly little rivalry. They were interrupted by the sound of clashing kunai. They looked down to see the two meeting in the middle, each holding a kunai against their opponents trying to outpower the other. Shikamaru sighed. How troublesome. Neither of them are that skilled in jutsu, so they are just relying in pure strength to win it. Kakashi and Naruto both glanced at each other. Sakura pushed against her kunai. Come on, piggy, you know you can't beat me. I've always been stronger. Ino grunted, struggling to stay on her feet. In your dreams, forehead. There is no way I'm going to let you win this one. You needed my team to come and save your ass when your team was knocked out. Sakura flinched slightly. Face it, forehead, you never had what it took to be a shinobi. The only reason you joined is because me and Naruto did. Plus, you knew Sasuke-kun would as well. Sakura growled as she pushed harder, winning their stand still as Ino's kunai flew out of her hand. She jumped back trying to avoid the slice but winced as she got her distance. She looked down to see her sleeve and arm had a small slice on it. Sakura kept her gaze on Ino. You went too far, piggy. I didn't do this because I wanted to copy any of you or to get a better chance with Sasuke. She then charged Ino. I joined cause I want to be a shinobi like my dad. Ino moved to the side, dodging the attack. She jumped back, keeping her distance. Looks like you finally decided to take things serious. She then reached into her kunai holder, taking one out. Sakura took one as well, ready for the attack. I'll block this one, and while she is regaining her balance, I'll sneak up behind and attack. Every was surprised as Ino pulled her ponytail straight and then cut it off, dropping the hair to the ground. I won't lose to someone who can't even use a decent jutsu. Ino then held up a very familiar hand seal. Shikamaru frowned, talking to himself. Ino, you're not supposed to use that unless I use my shadow jutsu first to keep them from moving. Naruto looked at him. What do you mean? Shikamaru glanced at him. You don't know? Some best friend you are. He then looked back down at the two girls. Ino's jutsu allows her to transfer her mind into the body of her opponent. Well duh, I knew that. What you didn't know apparently is that her mind can only travel in a straight line and very slowly. And if the jutsu fails, it will take several minutes for her mind to return to her body, which means… Sakura smirked, knowing what would happen if she dodged the jutsu. She will be completely helpless. She laughed. You're taking a big risk, piggy, getting tired or something? Ino smirked. I have a plan. Sakura started to run around Ino in a circle as Ino preformed her jutsu. Both bodies froze as they both went limp. Ino's body hit the floor. Sakura's body smirked. Good try, piggy. Sakura looked up and smiled. I win. She started to walk off but suddenly found she couldn't move. She then heard a chuckle from Ino's body. You think I'm that stupid enough to make sure you couldn't move first? She looked up from holding her hands on a trail of hair that now bound Sakura's feet. Sakura's eyes lit up in fear. She used her chakra to make her hair tie me to this one spot. I can't move. Ino once again held up her famous seal. This time it's of real though. Mind transfer jutsu. The same event repeated itself as once again both bodies went limp. Sakura's body once again chuckled. I win this one, forehead. She then looked at the proctor. Sakura Haruno, give up. The entire arena froze in amazement. It seemed that Ino had planned well for this fight. Sakura's body smiled. I'm tired. Time for a nap. Her body slowly fell to the ground, found itself caught by Naruto. He looked over his shoulder to Shikamaru holding Ino. They both then jumped to the platform with the other teams and leaned the two girls against the wall. Sakura's body looked up at Naruto and smiled weakly. Sorry, she had to lose whiskers. Naruto smiled back and nodded. Shush, just get some rest now. Whiskers, when this round is over and I wake up back in my body, maybe we need to go celebrate. And I think I found a girl that will actually date you. Sakura's body then leaned against Naruto as her eyes closed. Ino woke up inside her own body again, leaned against Shikamaru. But this time he was slightly more beat up. What happened? Shikamaru looked down at her. Oh, you finally woke up. You sure are a troublesome girl. Ino frowned. Watch it, lazy bum. Shikamaru sighed. You already missed 2 more matches. Shino took out that sound guy that Naruto beat up in the forest. Then I beat the female sound ninja. Ino couldn't help but smile. You won? Yeah, against a girl. This is so troublesome. The screen flashed the next match. Yoroi Ikado vs Rock Lee. Lee jumped into the air. Yosh. It's finally my turn. The spectacled teammate of Kabuto remained silent as he made his way down to the stage. Lee started off but was stopped when Naruto put his hand on Lee's shoulder. Be careful, that guy's teammate felt strange. Lee nodded. Do not worry, eternal rival. My youthfulness show out flame any trickery this man will try. Everyone's sweat dropped except Guy, who was now striking the nice guy pose. Lee then made his way down to the stage. The proctor looked between the two. Ready, begin. Lee automatically attacked with a barrage of attacks. Yoroi seemed unworried as he blocked each of them. He waited for his opening and took it when he sidestepped one of Lee's attacks, shoving him to the ground and holding him down as he hand glowed with chakra. He then let out a laugh. No, you don't have any chakra. You won't be able to perform even the most simple jutsu. Lee chuckled at this. What are you laughing at? You lost, yelled Yoroi. Lee landed an elbow in the stomach of his opponent. Yoroi flew backwards at the force and landed gasping for air. Lee stood up, dusting himself off. Your unyouth-like tricks are useless against me. He then took off the weights on his arms and legs. I have never been able to use jutsu to being with. Lee vanished with speed and appeared in front of Yoroi. Lee then kicked him into the air. He unhooked his bandages before jumping up after Yoroi. Lee quickly appeared behind Yoroi as bandages began to wrap around the latter. Sasuke may have tried to copy my moves, but let me show you the real thing. Lee wrapped his arms around Yoroi as they both spiraled towards the ground. Secondary Lotus. They hit the ground with a great impact. The entire group waited to see which if either of the participants would walk away. As the smoke cleared, Lee slowly limped out of the newly formed crater. The proctor walked to the crater and looked down to see the worn-out body of Lee's opponent. He let out a cough. Winner, Rock Lee. Sakura, who had woken up about the same time as Ino, cheered. Way to go, Lee. Lee flashed a smile and gave a thumbs up to Sakura. Naruto chuckled. And you tell me not to encourage him. Shut up, Sakura shot back. The next match flashed. Kiba Inuzuka vs Choji Akamichi. Hinata paled when she realized that she had not been called yet, and she knew she could not beat 2 out of the other 3 left at all. Her eyes fell onto Gaara as she shivered in fear. The event from back in the Forest of Death flashed through her memory. Begin. Hinata's thoughts were stopped when her teammates' match began. She watched as Kiba was automatically on the defense as Choji used his human meat tank jutsu. Shikamaru sighed. Kiba couldn't have picked a worse opponent. Kiba's family jutsu rallies on raw power, but there is no way he can beat Choji with power. Naruto nodded. This is going to be an uphill battle. Kiba was breathing deeply as he stared at Choji. I'm going to have to go all out. He reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 pills, downing one and feeding the others to Akamaru. Ready, Akamaru. Akamaru barked an affirmative, jumping onto Kiba's back. Kiba then preformed the required hand seals, beast human clone. No, instead of 1 Kiba and 1 Akamaru, there were now 2 slightly more beast-like Kibas. Choji stared at the 2 and smirked. So now there is 2 of you, I'll just smash you both. His arms and feet tucked into his clothes, human meat tank. He then started to rapidly spin towards the Kibas. Kiba chuckled. Here we go, Akamaru, our trump card. Double piercing fang. He and Akamaru then became like 2 tornadoes that rapidly hit Choji dead on. The ground shook as both jutsus continued on, neither giving the other an inch. Shikamaru chuckled. The winner of this is going to win. But both are going to be in extreme pain. The crowd watched the match with interest, waiting for a sign that one of them to give. Kiba's jutsu slowly lost its speed and was pushed backwards into the wall by the human meat tank. He fell to the ground motionless. Hinata gasped, "Kiba! Akamaru!" She started to rush down the stairs towards her teammate. Kiba was slowly taken away as Choji was declared the winner. As the medic nin passed Hinata, she blushed. One of them turned around, yes? Hinata reached into her pocket, pulling out a small container of ointment, F for Kiba-kun and Akamaru. The nin smiled and nodded. They started to take Kiba away, but he stopped them. "Hinata, wait." Hinata walked up to the side of him. "Hinata, listen to me. This is very important. You need to give up right now. That sound guy is dangerous. And that guy from the sound won't stop till his opponent is dead. You need to forfeit." Hinata paused. Listen, I know you want to prove you're a strong shinobi, but if you get in a match with one of those two, you're going to die." Hinata looked over her shoulder at the next match and gasped. It was too late. Kiba looked up and saw the match number. Gaara vs. Hinata Hyuga. Hinata forfeit now. Hinata bowed her head and was about to give up when she spotted Naruto looking down at her. He never gave up once. "I have to prove myself worthy of him. I have to fight this match and find a way to survive." Kiba caught Hinata's line of sight. "Hinata, he's not worth your life. Don't do it." Hinata slowly started to walk towards the ring area. Ino gasped as she saw Hinata walk to her match. She had been sure she would just give up when she found out who her opponent would be. "Naruto, she's going to get killed." Naruto frowned. "I won't let her." He was about to jump in when Kakashi grabbed her shoulder. "Gekko will stop it before she gets killed." The proctor looked between the two. He seemed to focus slightly longer on Hinata, as if giving her one last chance to give up. He coughed. "Begin." Hinata was immediately pushed against the wall by a horizontal pillar of sand. Gaara slowly yet menacingly walked towards her. When he got close enough so only Hinata could hear, he spoke. "You know what I can do." Hinata gasped, trying to keep her breath. Gaara motioned up to the people standing above them. "The blonde that beat my brother." "What is his name?" "Naruto Uzumaki," coughed Hinata. Gaara looked up at him and smirked. "Naruto." He chuckled as he looked back at Hinata. It has been a long time since it has thirsted for a person's blood so much. The sand stopped as Gaara walked away. "However, it does not want to taste your blood at all. You are far too weak." The proctor walked over and noticed Hinata was only slightly hurt, but this whole thing had just proved she had no chance at all. There was no need for blood or death when it could be stopped. "Winner. Gaara of the Sand." Gaara stopped his journey back to his team to look at Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto looked down at the menacing youth. "I shall taste your blood." Gaara then walked back to his team. The proctor coughed. "Will the last two participants please come to the arena?" Hinata slowly made her way up to the watching area and leaned against the wall. Naruto sat down beside her. "You okay?" Hinata kept her eyes on the ground. "I am sorry, Naruto-kun." "Sorry? Why?" Beat him." Naruto smiled, patting her back. "Don't worry. That guy is a freak. I'll be sure to get in some good punches for you when I fight him." Hinata blushed. Thank you, Naruto-kun." Ino watched the two and smiled. She walked up and sat on the other side of Naruto. "Hey, Whiskers, remember you're spending tomorrow evening with the girl I have found for you. I'm getting her to meet you at my parents' shop, so be there around 8. Naruto paled. Ino gave Naruto a look telling him not to argue. "If you don't show up, I'm going to hunt you down and rip off your balls." Naruto choked. "Now split, I need to talk with Hinata for a second." Naruto sighed as he got up and looked down to see that the leader of the sound team had just finished off Kabuto's other opponent. Naruto thought it over. Me, Lee, Ino, Shikamaru, the two from the sand, Choji, Sasuke, Shino, and now this guy. That makes 7 Leafs, 2 sand and a sound, and only one of us isn't a rookie. This is not going to be easy. The next day, Naruto woke up stretching. It felt nice to actually sleep in his own bed. He scratched his stomach as he stood up and walked towards his closet. He picked out his usual clothes and changed before stumbling downstairs. "There's my little Chunin." Naruto blushed. Mo-om. There was a chuckle heard from the table. Naruto looked to see Asuma sitting there drinking a cup of coffee. Naruto bowed. "Asuma-sensei. Do we have a mission?" Asuma shook his head. "Nope, missions are off until after the final round." I just came by to congratulate you. You really pulled your match off. So did Ino and Shikamaru. Asuma chuckled, oh I know. Lucky me being the only sensei to have all three of his students move on. I guess it's just remarkable teaching. Naruto scoffed, we just got a lucky draw. Shikamaru was a definite win. Ino always beat Sakura when we were little, and I just got someone that hid behind a bunch of dolls. Asuma smirked, you did good kid. By the way, the old man said your sensei who will be in charge of your training for the final round is waiting for you at the tower. Naruto choked, what? Asuma chuckled, Yamanaka and Nara are training with their dads. And this guy will help you out with that wild amount of chakra you have. I guess you can say he specializes in special cases. Naruto frowned, special cases? Asuma nodded, yeah, he has only had one other student. He then leaned back and waited for Naruto's reaction to his next statement, the fourth. Mrs. Haruno dropped the dish she was drying as Naruto was frozen still. A smile broke across his face. I'm getting trained by the guy who trained the fourth. Asuma nodded, that is if you don't make him wait too much longer. Naruto took off out the door. That's all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.